the same bye week until it was like the very last round. So I panicked, took Hunter Henry. I was like, that felt really stupid. But
apparently he's been getting more work than Gesicki anyway in New England in camp. So
doesn't surprise me.
I have way too much Jelani Woods as my last pick. Like way too much, dude.
Anytime you can get a basketball player with your last pick, you got to do it.
He might be the most athletic tight end to ever play in the NFL.
It's probably true. He's up there.
He's a freak, but he also might just be straight zero for 17 weeks. We'll see. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com MLB Deeper Dive, 8-game action today. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D, and joining me, maybe for the first time this MLB season, Eric Lindquist at Eric Lindquist. If you're wondering where Adam is, he's on an expedition to Sentinel Island to make contact with the Sentinelese tribe. I told him it was aggressive. He said, people need to know what these people are doing. I Godspeed, I said, Eric, I wish him luck, but I think it's a risky journey.
Like half his body is covered in glitter right now. Let's not lie to the people.
That tribe's wild, though. You ever heard of the Sentinelese people?
No, I haven't. Where does this come from?
Like one missionary tried to reach them. They're on just like this island. It's inhabited by them, but there's like they've never made real contact with humans. And this missionary went to go preach the word, and they just lit him up with arrows on the shore. Like nobody can get there. They just kill you.
It's a little aggressive, but yeah, like Easter Island kind of situation where like how did people get to this place? And then there's like a protection of it, or is there something, where is it even at?
I think it's protected in the sense that we're just saying at this point, leave him alone, but leave it to Adam to be like, no, I'm doing it.
Oh, props to Adam. I will say, yeah, it's better than my theory where he's just going to be for a little hot second, just, checking out the fine ladies of Baltimore on the daily.
We know that's what he's doing. I just find it funny to think of like the most obscure, ambitious things that he's doing with his life while he's taking some time off, because it's the complete opposite, no matter what.
He's not Indiana Jonesing it up.
No, I don't think so.
Probably fair.
But anyway, hey, happy to be with you, man.
Happy to be with you too, my dude. I was going to say, you want to do a football show and then we can talk about 8 MLB games? We do NFL for 25 minutes.
Yeah, give like 15 minutes to baseball at the end.
That'd be great. I think Boom would appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I'm obviously kidding. It's actually a good slate. There's some really good pitching on it. Josh and I talked about it this morning. It's good. Listen, you can't blame me for being excited about football season. I'm looking forward to it. And it's finally, almost here. Like you can smell it in the air.
You say it all the time. Football's king. And it doesn't matter if it's not even your favorite sport. Like Josh Engelman probably could not care less that NFL is starting. But NFL DFS week 1, even if you hate the NFL, that's at least a fantastic week to make a lot of money. And he's absolutely smashed MLB and MMA this season, this entire summer. So I think he's probably in a good spot to be able to enjoy that week 1 himself for maybe the first time in his life.
He said he'll for sure be playing. It's just he doesn't, dude, preseason Hall of Fame game, 50K to first. That's all you need to know when you're talking about like what sport actually is the biggest. Chris Williams gifted another 5 subs.
Dude.
The man, dude. He keep coming in hot this week. Did it this morning. Make sure to say thanks to Chris if you got one. Good stuff, man. Appreciate you. Anyway, one thing before we get started. Could you guys be kind enough to take one single second out of your day? I know we have busy lives around here. We forget things. It happens. Life is stressful. But could you hit that thumbs up? Take a single second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Get us north of 100 here. Lafayette and Eric breaking down an 8-gamer tonight. Take it to the promised land. Maybe the lineup generator or the Sims or the tools will, but no matter how it's done, we'll get there one way or another. So yeah, 1 second, show some love, hit that thumbs up, and let's talk some baseball. All right, so yeah, Atlanta moved all the way to minus 305 against Pittsburgh today. On the road, no less. On the road, they are minus 305. You ask why? I'll tell you. Spencer Strider on the bump, going up against Osvaldo Bido. I mean, look, this is a 9-run total in this game. Most of that going to the Atlanta side. They're very expensive, but on both sides, so is Strider, so are the Atlanta bats. pretty optimal spot. The question is, how easy is it to get to these guys, especially with Freddie Peralta at his price and his matchup, and some other guys in some really good spots at cheaper price points?
Yeah, the thing with Strider, though, is that the price tag mitigates what would be outrageous ownership for anything less. Like, we're getting positive leverage at this spot for Spencer Strider. Now, I am a little bit surprised that doing some sims before the show that I wasn't getting to him as much as what I was expecting. 35.9% top two percentage. You're looking at 33.1% ownership on DraftKings for today. I think the conversation for me is on FanDuel for Spencer Strider, because on DK, positive leverage for him. I'm going to imagine a scenario where I'm just going to be able to, I mean, I'll probably give him a little ROI boost in the Sims tool, the pre-contest Sims tool, just because I know it's this good of a spot against Pittsburgh. They've traded away the G-Man choice, the Carlos Santanas. There's really, outside of a couple of bats, it's just free for all here for Spencer Strider. So I think he's somebody that you can afford. It's just a question. I want to get to Atlanta bats on the other side too, and you can't put those two together. That's for sure. So it's going to be both sides. Well, both sides just being Atlanta, both the Strider and the bat side, but just one that I thought I'd get to a little bit more manually, and it didn't happen.
Are you going to try any of that with, some Atlanta stacks and Strider, where you may have like a Cole Reagans down there coming off a real strong starter? Josh talked about Ken Waldichuk earlier today. Okay. I understand neither of these guys are exciting by any stretch, but they're dirt cheap. It feels like the only way to get you there is to take a huge long shot on a dirt cheap pitcher.
Yeah, the Reagan side is all right with me. Mainly, you're looking at a lefty who's going to be neutralizing a couple of those lefties in the Boston lineup. I think I could talk myself into that. Waldichuk, you got the ballpark. That's about all you got there. I suppose the K-prop sitting right around 5.5 for him. So not the complete worst spot there. But Texas, we know offensively, even though you're in Oakland, they can still put up some runs from time to time. I'm more inclined to be leaning on the Strider side. Normally pitching, it's just a little bit easier to gauge. We're at August 7th right now. Hopefully you understand why. I understand that that's something that can, any team can go cold with the bats for a day, but really hard for me to imagine a scenario where I see positive leverage on a guy like Spencer Strider, and I'm not over the field there, because it feels like a piece of your lineup you can lock in. You can get different with the bats. And there's a number of teams, even on just an 8-game slate, that I'm really interested in getting different with. So I'm going to rely more on Strider than I am the Atlanta bats, but I kind of want to make sure that I have room for both.
Crazy too, though, looking at the top pitchers tool. Strider at 33% ownership still has positive leverage, because we have him with a 36% likelihood of being a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings. Like that says a lot.
Yeah, and there is some weather lingering there too. I mean, that's going to be something for live before lock per usual. You got Greg and Neil that'll be bringing that for you. Nice for me to be able to hang out with Lofty a little bit here and not get made fun of by Greg for an hour. That'll be an enjoyable experience, but still nice guy. Super great.
Unless you think I'm not on a phone call.
We're going to throw that one in there for the people. But it looks like it's going to be okay to me. The one that you got to be paying attention to isn't even on this main slate, Philadelphia. So I'm really only paying attention to one major spot, the Mets as well. You got to be paying attention to that for the main slate as well. But especially with Kadai Senga, who I would have tons of if the weather cooperates there. But I think Pittsburgh looks like it's all right. We'll kind of know what we need to do there.
Yeah. It isn't all right. The Pittsburgh bats, they're 2% top stack probability, 1% aggregate ownership. No surprise against Strider, even if he gives up a little power from time to time. This isn't even a good park for hitters. PNC is a strong pitcher's park. And then Beto on the other side, lowest ownership of any pitcher on the slate, lowest top 2 probability. The Pittsburgh side doesn't look very good here.
No, they're atrocious. I mean, the top guy in the lineup, if you're trying to get to a bat, would be Jack Sawinski, just from a power perspective. And it's not that Spencer Strider's been completely immune to that. He's got over an 18-degree average launch angle for balls batted in play, and 39.3% K rate. His main big gauge against that is just not running into bats ever. Jack Sawinski strikes out an absolute metric ton, 32.8% K rate on the season for him as well. But it's still just, if he runs into one, you could be getting some leverage there. Brian Reynolds, that's a professional hitter, but Henry Davis, I know that highly touted prospect and has looked good in the early going. 44.1% hard hit percentage, 397 expected slugging. Hit his first career home run off of a Shohei Ohtani, so enjoy that for what it is. But look at these other names: Alika Williams, Paguero, Jared Triolo, ND Rodriguez. This is not. I mean, this is a quad A lineup, so it's definitely all systems go for as much Spencer Strider as you want to get to, so long as that positive leverage maintains.
Man, I'm about to get hit with some wicked weather here in PA. I'll tell you that much.
All right. Well, then that makes it interesting. For Philly, I was kind of looking at, Kyle Schwarber home run has just been autopilot. Trevor Williams, that seems like a decent spot. So I'm kind of waiting on that from a betting perspective. But for DFS today, don't really have to worry about it unless you're playing the turbo slate.
Nope, not at all. Or if my power goes out while we're doing this show. Aside from that, we should be good. Cubs and Mets. So
then Jordan Klein gets to join the show. We don't have another choice.
See if we can find the handle of Kettle One in his apartment again. Is that what it was?
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that was fun though. Drew Smiley, Kodai Senga. Mets slight favorites at home, 8.5 run total here. We could talk about both of these guys. Probably start with Senga. Only 10% ownership. He was higher earlier in the day. Since we've rerun ownership projections in the top pitchers tool, he's come down to, I think, like that 8th highest owned pitcher at 10%. Once you get past that, though, it's just all like low single digits. We have him with positive leverage, 6.6% leverage score. I don't really want to know if you like him in a vacuum as much as Garrett Cole, Logan Webb, Strider, Peralta. There's a lot of pretty expensive pitchers on this slate. Where does Senga shake out for you? Like, how do you prioritize him among those other pitchers?
Yeah, it's going to really depend on the weather here, too. He starts earlier than a Logan Webb. He starts earlier than a Garrett Cole in Chicago. He starts right around Spencer Strider. Strider's definitely, for me, the priority. I know that the field's getting to him 3x, but I'm okay with it. Most people know that I'm a huge Kodai Senga fan, and that he's generally going to be somebody that I get to tons of, but we're going to have to pay very close attention to this weather. This is the one spot that it's a little bit hairy, and I don't know what to make of it. If that ownership starts coming down, I guarantee you, though, he's going to just start showing up for me more and more, and I somehow hope this game can play clean. He has the best pitch in baseball, the Ghost Fork. There's nobody that's remotely close. And we're comparing it to like Kevin Gausman changeup, comparing it to, it's just one of those pitches that does ridiculous things. A 167 slugging against, a 139 batting average against, a 58.6% whiff percentage. As long as he's just mitigating the walks, he is so good across the board at everything. 3.65 expected ERA. It's a decent enough spot here against a Cubs lineup. Now, you always want to see the way that it comes out now with Mr. Patrick Wisdom not in it today, Heimer Candelario there. You do have Christopher Morel, but with the acquisition of Candelario, that cuts about 12% of K rate off of third base. So I know he's playing first today, Heimer Candelario, in real life, but that's just something you always want to be paying close attention to. So it's not as good of a spot as it could be. You get Tauchman, you get Horner at the top of this one. Both of those guys pretty good at avoiding strikeouts, but I still think when 10%, that's positive leverage going in there as well. Everybody wants to be getting up and paying for the bats. Stacks are really going to be how you win tournaments long-term, but you got to be locking in some pitching. And I think Spencer Strider 1, Senga would probably be falling 2, weather pending, and then Cole, Webb. Webb, it's just a strikeout situation. I think Garrett Cole's in just a little bit better spot.
The Ghost Fork is basically just a splitter, right?
Yeah.
What do you like?
But he has a splitter as well. There's like an interesting difference. He has a sweeper. It is. Okay. I had to double check. But
Ohtani's sweeper is maybe the nastiest thing I've seen in a long time.
I would call that the second best pitch in baseball.
I was watching baseball. We were at the bar the other day and Ohtani, I forget what it was, but Ohtani was pitching. And like they're a casual baseball fan, big into football and just not a huge baseball fan. And we're watching a game and he throws that and the batter strikes out swinging. He's like, why would he swing at that? And most people would think the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why would he swing at that? It's 14 feet out of the zone. But when that ball's, it looks like it's coming down, straight down the barrel, straight down. And then it just takes a hard left. I don't know, that pitch to me, from what I've seen this season, probably my favorite to watch, just to see batters lose their shoes every time they swing out of them.
Yeah, he hasn't been throwing it as much. It's now his third pitch, it looks like, in the pecking order. He goes four-seamer. The sweeper he throws the most, actually. Okay, so that's different. He's got the splitter that is actually further down in terms of usage, but it's still ridiculously nasty to 136 batting average. I mean, these are just, I think they have the two filthiest pitches in baseball between the two of them. You could argue 1-2 in any capacity. Ohtani's been doing it a little bit longer, obviously. Senga was doing it over in Japan, and now just enters the fray. I mean, Kevin Gausman has that one specific pitch. He can't throw it, 40, 50% of the time, or it would lose its effectiveness. But I feel really good about those two. I would put those two pitches up against anybody.
Would you put Drew Smyly in your DFS lineups over anyone today? I mean,
No.
Is there some interest at all here against this Mets lineup? He's a reverse splits guy this year by far, like really has limited right-handed hitters to very low power numbers. Yeah,
still just runs into a spot for me where at 6,800 from a price perspective, I'd rather go cheaper. You avoid a lot of these weather issues. He has a 15.5% top two value percentage, which is just, middle of the road amongst these cheapies. I think I would much rather go towards Cole Reagans. We'll talk about him. Ken Waldachuk. I don't mind Josh's call out there. I think that's just fine. You're saving over $1,000 to get down there. You can afford bats like Atlanta, bats like the expensive pieces that you want to get to from the Yankees side of things. There's better places to get to, I think, on this slate that I'm probably not going to get there in any capacity. He does have positive leverage, 7.8% positive leverage, second most positively leveraged pitcher on the slate. But between the weather issues, I don't really think you need to be making that play. And on FanDuel, there's too much upside with the Striders, the Peraltas, the Coles. I can't really find myself getting there.
All right. So with that in mind, we know weather issues in baseball are less of a concern for hitters. Doesn't mean that they're not a concern, but the hitters are coming back out if it's a prolonged delay. The pitchers aren't. Do you like these Mets bats or the Cubs bats on either side of this today?
Yeah, I do like the Mets to a certain extent, not in just a 5-man stack type of capacity. I mean, they are a little bit overowned, it looks like, in the tools. The Top Stacks tool was a little bit of negative leverage, nothing crazy, 1.1%, but I find individual hitters very fascinating. Not just Pete Alonso, who coming off of the All-Star break and this elbow issue, he's finally starting to look more like Pete Alonso. You get a decent catching option there, batting second in Francisco Alvarez. Mark Ventos, 55% hard hit percentage so far, 474 expected slugging. I really don't like the bottom half of this lineup. I don't think anybody does, but 1 through 5, whether it's Nimmo, Alvarez, Lindor, you get the positionality of the Alvarez and Lindor pieces. I think that always has some utility.
And on the Cubs side against Senga, I mean, like you said, you love Kodai Senga. Fair enough. Makes sense. Is there any real merit to getting to some of these Cubs bats today at Citi Field? He's allowing only 0.89 home runs per 9, almost a 30% K rate, 3.8 xFIP. Like he just hasn't allowed a lot of power. There's some good pitchers that allow power. He's not really doing any of that either.
Yeah, the Cubs have a 107 WRC plus against righties, but it's still just a difficult ask against Senga. I will say the one thing Senga does is he walks batters. There's no doubt about it. 11.6% walk rate. He can get himself in trouble from time to time. It's a stack that's not going to get any shine whatsoever, especially if the weather looks shitty, and it does. It's flat leverage that we have going there. And utility of a stack is just you get all of the bad walks, all of the things coming together to create a beast. If it just happens to fall that way, it's only an 8-game slate, so you have limited options compared to what you're going to have tomorrow on a 15, 14 gamer. So I'm okay with it actually getting to some Cubs bats. Nothing crazy for me. Looks like Heimer Candelario is actually showing up for me a little bit there. Yan Gomes, another decent catching option, but Tauchman's going to be the guy who gets a lot of the shine from anybody, if anybody from the Cubs side. Bellinger's had a great year, but 30.5% hard hit percentage. I think he's been running really, really good in the BABIP department this season. Probably going to be staying away from any of my main teams, but hey, large field tournaments, Senga starts walking guys, you're in a really good spot.
All right, let's keep it moving then. Here's a an interesting spot to discuss. Cole Reagans and Brian Bayo, 9.5 run total here. Actually came down a little bit. It was a 10 earlier today. Kansas City plus 164 on the money line. Let's dive into this a bit because Reagan's getting no ownership whatsoever. 5.4% top two probability. Always keep in mind, we're talking leverage scores here down to these like 1% owned guys. It's not as significant in a spot like that because he's 1% owned, but he's going up against the Boston team that right now has the third highest top stack probability, but the highest aggregate ownership by 3 full percent. They have the highest stack score in the top stacks tool. And a lot of that is just the fact that their value score, like they're not all that expensive, but they're going to be popular. Reagan's coming off a great start, is getting zero ownership whatsoever. How do you play this? Are you going right to the semi-chalky Boston bats today?
No, I'm not. And it's going to feel really, really gross to be on the Cole Reagan side of this one at 1%, but that's kind of where I'm landing. I'm not saying that he's going to be the guy that came out 6 innings, 8 Ks against the Mets, completely mowed them down. Pretty outlier start, if you ask me. But he's 5,200 on a slate where Spencer Strider, Garrett Cole, Kadai Senga, Freddie Peralta in the absolute crazy spot against Colorado with an 8.5K total across the industry. I have to be looking at Cole Reagans as somebody that I can get to save me some money. He's been decent enough with a 3.52 expected ERA. I mean, that's fantastic, but a 4.33 actual ERA. The barrel percentage is sub 7%, even last year where he struggled, 5.1% this season. He has a decent enough changeup that he's throwing primarily to those righties that's just getting hit up at a 220 expected batting average clip, 171 batting average. I think there's enough there where I don't expect any kind of crazy amount of Ks. And overall, on the aggregate, the Boston Red Sox, despite having a lot of lefties in this lineup, they project out better against left-handed pitching, which I found a little bit surprising. 105 WRC plus against that handedness for the season, 104 against righties. So pretty nominal difference. But I think the price matched with no ownership, matched with their going up against the highest ownership share team in the top stacks tool. I'm going to be rolling the dice with him above the 10% line in 150, and it does not feel good.
I get it. We talked about it a lot this morning. You're never going to feel good about anytime you're playing a 5,200 price pitcher, you're either not going to feel good about it or DraftKings screwed up pricing and everyone's playing him anyway. So it's not really, he has you know what his X ISO is against right-handed bats this year?
No.
0.097.
It's absurd.
I get it's only 405 pitches. I understand that, but he has limited right-handed power considerably. 270 WOBA, 260 X WOBA on 405 pitches. You could have worse at 5,200. We could put it that way.
Yeah, he's peppering batters with the changeup. He's not throwing it to lefties at all. It would just hang in the zone for them and kind of be a beach ball, but it gets away enough from his four-seamer that it's able to break off of it. And you can kind of look at all of that stuff in Savant and see the pitch tracking for it. But overall, it's just an effective pitch to those righties. And there's a lot of situations where he's going to get completely bamboozled here. And the chalk Boston team is going to smash and it's going to be over for me very, very quickly. But we have Texas with a higher top stack percentage. We have Atlanta with a way higher top stack percentage. It's so hard for me to want to prioritize a chalky Boston bat against a pitcher who I don't believe in what he's doing entirely. But there's a clear path to it. It's baseball. And the best path of Boston not killing me with me below the path is to have Cole Reagans have a good outing. He's gotten extended now. 81 got ramped up to 94 pitches last time out. Again, it's an uncomfortable roster, but at 5,200, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it.
I get it. Crazy too. 25% K rate versus righties. 19.6 versus left. 2% K minus BB versus lefties. That's not great.
My God.
But there's 6 righties in the lineup today, right?
Yep.
I believe there are. Yeah. All right. What about KC or Brian Bayo on the other side now that we spent some time on Cole Reagans?
I really like what Brian Bayo's starting to put together for a season, a 56.3% ground ball percentage. That's just his calling card. He's going to get guys with that sinker to just hit it into the dirt, and he's in a really good spot. He's giving up hard contact. He falls into that batted ball profile of a Logan Webb. The thing he doesn't have is the K rate to go with it, like a Logan Webb, where, yeah, Logan Webb's below the main K guys on the board for today, but at 20.6%, going up against Kansas City, it's mainly a matchup thing if you want to be getting there. Can he get 6-7 innings into this one? I think that's always a curious FanDuel question that you can ask. But I'm not going to be playing FanDuel today, but even running some stuff before the show over there didn't really land on him at all. It just seems like I'm constantly getting concentrated towards Strider at 11.5, Garrett Cole at 11K. You got Freddie Peralta at 10.5 in a phenomenal spot. He's the highest owned pitcher on FanDuel. Logan Webb as a contrarian type option for FanDuel. Kadai Senga didn't even bring him into the board. It's a really stacked pitching slate at the top. For DraftKings, maybe he can be that guy that just gives you a little bit of differentiation, but I'm not really falling on him because all of my builds tend to go towards Strider, Garrett Cole, the expensive guys paired with somebody who's just terrible at pitching.
Oh, Toronto and Cleveland. Oh, before we do, always telling you guys when we got free squares out there. And this one is time sensitive because it's for the 640 game with the Marlins. Yuri Perez, under 99.5 strikeouts on Boom. I say it like that because a lot of times they're free squares, but they're not like technically going to happen. If if it's like even football over half a passing yard, they could get hurt. And there was one, was it who was it for Miami? Caleb Martin that had like the over 1 point in the finals.
Oh, that's right. In the NBA finals, we had to wait until like the fourth quarter or the end of the third for him to finally get there.
I think it was the start of the fourth. He hits one, and then they pull the starters a couple minutes later because it was a blowout. So it's like, that's a free square in the traditional sense. This is actually a free square. Like Perez is not striking out 100 batters tonight.
No, he's not.
Link in the description and in chat. The way they do it at Boom is kind of cool. It's $10 per play on these free squares, but they do them all the time. They're popping up everywhere. So it's $10 and 2 legs per entry. But think of it this way. You're doing one leg to win $30. So if you're talking like a traditional sports book, Eric, it's basically just a massive odds boost that any sports book I'm on, whenever there's an odds boost like this, essentially free play, because you only need to get one right now to turn 10 into 30. Anytime it's out there, I'm just smashing these, which is why I'm on as many sports books as possible. But for pick'em sites, Boom's got these free squares out there. You're just turning a little bit of money into more money every single time they got them.
Yeah, I do a lot of content over at Odd Shopper. I know a lot of you guys check out the great stuff that we have over there. Lofty's over there, myself, Greg Ehrenberg. But it can apply to the pick'em sites as well. You need to be having exposure to the underdogs, to the prize picks. There's going to be lines that are going to look different. You're going to have projections that look different, player props that look different across the entire industry. And you want to make sure that you're in a spot where, hey, I can get $10 on this free square plus this line. It's jumping out over at this site. Well, I can just take that over to Boom. And if it's sitting in the same capacity, or if it's sitting around the same number there, I have a positive EV bet instantly. It's impossible for it not to be. So you want to get exposure to Boom, to Underdog. You never know which site it is that's going to pop up with these amazing offers. It's Boom today. I saw that I took advantage of the Alex Morgan one. Still waiting for her to score a goal. So the under of 99.5. We'll be waiting another 4 years. I'm not sure if she'll end up playing that one again when it comes around next time for the U.S. women's team. But that one cashed, and it was pretty simple, where I was able to take all of the info that I had for other sites and apply it directly to Boom. So you want to be checking that out.
Yeah. But your first entry is backed up to $100, right? It's risk. It's a no sweat first entry up to $100. So do your first one. If use the link in the description and chat, it'll get you the $100. I always say max it if you're in a position to do so financially, max it. Because even if you lose on an $100 entry, it all comes back to you right back into your account. And if you win, you just double, tripled, quadrupled, 5, 6 extra bankroll. So you got the $100 no sweat first entry plus the free square over there today. Beautiful time to check it out. Boom Fantasy, link in the description and in chat. Toronto and Cleveland, Hyunjin Ryu and Gavin Williams. Ramirez, 6 games, and Tim Anderson only 3. How about that?
Well, I mean, other way around. Jose Ramirez got 3, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jose Ramirez got 3. Tim Anderson got 6.
Oh, see, I would have.
I would have been up in arms, quite literally. I would have been, Tim Anderson throwing him up if Tim Anderson had somehow not gotten suspended longer, because he instigated the entire thing. Ramirez is just responding to a dude throwing punches at him.
Who instigated it?
Oh, Tim Anderson instigated.
No, he didn't. Sure.
Oh, yeah, he did.
How?
He's the one who was like, all right, now we're going to fight. Instead of just having a conversation, he threw his arms up.
If a grown... Now, listen, by the way, I don't know exactly what happened.
We're going to go down this path. This is fun.
I don't know exactly what happened on the tag. All right, fine. Okay. Looked routine to me, but people say that Tim Anderson's like tags their faces and is rough with that, whatever. A grown man stands up and sticks his finger straight between your eyes like this and is pointing at you. To me, that is grounds for, all right, now I need to do something. You can't back away from that.
I suppose for me, it felt
I'm just saying,
like
Ramirez wasn't trying to have a conversation. He wasn't trying to hash it out.
Excuse me, sir. Could you please slide in a more orderly fashion next time? Or could you please tag me in a nicer way next time? Yeah, those weren't the conversations. Hey, what are you doing after the game? Let's hang out. That didn't happen either.
Right. The finger in the face, man. I know you've scrapped a couple times. We talked about it.
I was going to say, Philly, South Dakota, basically the same thing.
You get someone throwing a finger in your face. But no.
I was going to say, it's not an enjoyable experience, but also it's different than going like this. And I think Anderson threw the punch first. So
sure.
that would be the other part of it, where he actually took the first action in the entire ordeal. Ramirez just finished it, and he finished it in fantastic, just fatality. It was incredible.
Here for it, dude. I'd like another one this week. I really want it. It's awesome.
Good for baseball, I think. I mean, we're in beginning August. Everybody's waiting for the playoffs. It's good to have a scrap or two.
Yeah, I guarantee if you ask people that don't watch baseball, like, hey, what do you know about the season this year? They go, well, I saw that fight.
I still remember Jose Bautista's glasses flying off his face like it was yesterday.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What a Rougned Odor. What an absolute shot. Probably his best hit that he's had in 5 years.
It probably is. I just thought they both would have got the same. Doesn't matter. Not like I care.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with pitching from this one? Ryu and Gavin Williams. Is there anything that remotely stands out to you in this game for pitching?
Now, Ryu's just had problems the last couple of years. He has a fastball that sits right around 90. I don't expect him to be as bad as that first start. It's one start, 80 pitches, 8.23 expected ERA, 5.21 expected ERA, and just under 400 pitches last season, 4.45 expected ERA. Definitely not the guy that Toronto was anticipating on getting from the Dodgers, but 10.5% barrel percentage, already 2 barrels that he gave up in those 80 pitches. I don't think he's going to be any good, but Cleveland's lineup is not exactly ideal. I did bet the Cleveland side of this one. I do like getting to Gavin Williams, just in terms of what that fastball could be eventually at the big league level. Now, Zips and Steamer aren't exactly gung-ho about it, which I'm not a big fan of, but overall, he's still throwing it right around 60% of the time. It's still been pretty good at limiting hard contact, 34.2% hard hit percentage. He's got a decent lineup here. You're looking at this Toronto lineup. You have obviously still no Bo Bichette. That's been the best hitter in this lineup all season long. You have a number of pieces that are just kind of noticeably absent. You have Springer now batting cleanup. They're doing a bunch of things trying to make it stick. They do get Danny Jansen back, but overall, the back half of this lineup has been brutality all season long. Matt Chapman having a terrible year. Varjo, Biggio, DeYoung just thrown into the mix at the bottom. Davis Schneider has been out of control at the top of this lineup, and I'm sure he's probably going to get some steam as we get closer to lock. But I'm probably looking more at Gavin Williams, if anything, from this one, but more than likely from a DFS perspective, just kind of a wash of a game for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, we got plenty of games to talk about, so we'll keep it going.
I was going to say Toronto. There are some bats specifically, like individually. David Schneider, he's 2,700. He's hitting up with over a 1 OPS. He's doing just ridiculous things. This isn't going to maintain. He's had 15 plate attempts so far this season, 845 expected slugging, but hard to not admit that at 2,700 against any righty that he wouldn't stand out as a good value option. Or, I mean, he's right-handed himself, but just seems like a guy that is going to have righty power as well.
How about the Cubs and the White Sox and the Yankees? This one's interesting from a Dylan Cease perspective. I look at him and I see a Yankees team that on the season really has not produced all that well against right-handed pitching. They're middle of the road in K rate on their active roster, 22.4%, 97 WRC plus. Again, that's on the active roster. That's sitting right in the middle of, or that 19th in baseball, as a matter of fact. They definitely have some power, but Dylan Cease has done a good job of limiting home runs, less than 1 home run per 9. He's striking batters out at a 27% clip, and he's done a good job of limiting right-handed power. He's 17% owned today. We have him with the top 2 probability of around 14%. We'll talk about Garrett Cole, but Cease is on an island at that price point at 8,500. There's not really that much in there in that same range.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here of late. I was going back through, the velocity looked fine, but he's gotten completely obliterated against Cleveland and Texas his last 2 outings out. Again, it's a 2 outing sample size. I think more concerning is he's really not inducing a lot of swings and misses, and that's really his path to being fantastic in this spot. 26.9% K percentage. You get a Jake Bauers, Aaron Judge combination who can be lethal. Well, Jake Bauers has been out of control. Aaron Judge is always out of control, but a 32 and 28.5% K percentage respectively for the top 2 batters in this lineup. You get around and face them 3 times. That can be useful. Anthony Volpe at the bottom of it, 28% K rate as well. So there's a path where Dylan Cease could be great here. I just want to start seeing those swings and misses return, because 5 and 1 Ks, not exactly stellar stuff. Maybe he started his winter vacation a little bit early here. He's the one guy who didn't get traded away, probably the one guy who wanted to get traded away the most. Everybody else wanted Giolito, wanted other pieces. But looking at Dylan Cease in this spot specifically, I think he's about appropriately owned there.
How much of this do you think is, Cleveland lowest K rate in the league, and Texas just a really good team and he got blown up? Like, he didn't even get out of the second inning.
Yeah, Texas, that's 100% likely. It could also just be that it's not going to be 4.61 ERA, 1.41 whip. The surface numbers haven't exactly been stellar either.
No, for sure.
And you go through some of his pitch mix specifically. I covered it a little bit last night. The 4-seamer over the course of this season is down over a mile per hour. You're looking at a 1.3 mile per hour difference between last year and this year. And that's a pitch that goes from, 23.2% whip percentage to 20.2%. Might not seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it sets up everything else you do. And that slider has to be the calling card. That's what it was over the course of last season, a 43.3% whip percentage on it. And if that 4-seamer is going to be getting hit up, he's not as useful to me. The price tag, though, along with the path where, he could give up a lot of runs, he could also mow down a couple of these guys early. And as you said, Cleveland doesn't strike out against anybody. They haven't for years. And then on the other side of that one, Texas, confirmed pretty good at baseball with a 119 WRC plus against righties. So Dylan Cease, probably a spot that I should be a little bit more bullish on, but seems like I'm just getting to that expensive tier a little bit more.
How about in our top pitchers tool, Garrett Cole having the highest leverage score of any pitcher, 21% top 2 probability. I mean, hey, there is some sense in that. The White Sox have a bottom 5 WRC plus versus righties. They walk at the 3rd lowest clip in the league. They have a middle of the road K rate against righties. And I think his price point is kind of just a little prohibitive today, in the sense that he's not pulling ownership, because you have Strider, you have Peralta, you have Senga. There's a lot of these guys. And maybe Garrett Cole's going a little bit overlooked.
I think the main thing to pay attention here is what happens with Senga, because all of that ownership at 10K, we're talking 10% of it, is probably going to get flooded to Garrett Cole after the fact here as we get closer to lock. I don't think people are going to be getting off of Spencer Strider and taking that ownership and putting it towards Garrett Cole. It's basically going to be, if this Mets-Cubs game doesn't look very good before lock, you're going to see a little bit more ownership come in. And as you said before, he's the most positively leveraged pitcher in the top pitchers tool. That makes a lot of sense. You've got a team with a 150 ISO against right-handed pitching on the season for the White Sox. Yeah, they've got individual bats there, but on the whole, they have not been good. Middle of the road, 23.6% K rate against righties as well. I love Garrett Cole on this slate at this current ownership. I hope it doesn't change Going to be somebody that I think you want to be invested in for sure. Senga would be my priority over him at current ownership, but I'm not super optimistic here. Again, somebody said in the chat, 5%, 10%. I'm just going to be paying attention to it. I'll know right before lock what I need to do specifically, but just keep that in the back of your mind there, because Kadai Senga, you don't want to run into another rain short in outing for him like we had in Fenway the other day. It was like 2 or 3 starts ago that everybody got burned there, but I'm feeling pretty good about Garrett Cole here in this spot.
Lowest total on the slate. It's not at Yankee Stadium either. It's in Chicago. Any interest in bats for this one? Go ahead and take a sip of water if you were going.
Oh God, yeah, no, I'm filling the Adam roll. I'm trying to talk as fast as possible, and
you're good. Yeah, these can the end of these shows can sneak up on you for sure. But no, I mean, even if I guess on one hand you could be like, yes, Cease does have the potential to get blown up at times. Cole, on the other hand, stacking White Sox here doesn't seem particularly appealing. They have a 1.6 top stack probability. Yankees are sitting at 5.9, so it's quite a bit higher. Do you like either side of this one, whether it's one-offs or full stacks?
Yeah, I would really like the Yankees side if they weren't so damn owned at the moment, but they're the most negatively leveraged hitting team on this entire slate as well. They're 5.9% top stack percentage, 9.4% ownership share. And then you look at Cease, you brought up all the cases for it where he's sub 1 home run per 9. You're looking at a guy that has actually, until recently, limited power to a certain extent, even with the hard hit there. What you have are some outlier bats, whether it's Jake Bauers, who can just go out there and do crazy things. Aaron Judge is always live for a double dong as well. There's a lot of game theory where I would try to mix these bats in, but they're already popular. So I don't necessarily need to think about that. I have an unowned Atlanta team. I have an unowned opportunity to stack up Texas against Ken Waldichuk. I have a lot of other teams with more utility with more than double the top stack percentage. So for me, if the field's getting away from it there, I talked about all the cases that the Cole Reagans thing is probably going to go atrociously for me. But with him, with some other cheapies that I'm willing to mix in, even Ken Waldichuk himself, I think I'm finding myself on more Strider Cole, and it's just going to lead me to builds that don't necessarily have expensive Yankees.
Looking at it now, it's wild. Cease doesn't have one multi-home run game allowed all season.
That's pretty wild.
Pretty crazy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a guy who's been getting hit up too. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's walking batters at 10% too. So that's going to get you into some trouble. But
career high 43.7% hard hit percentage too.
Yeah, that's not great.
Not ideal.
Peter Lambert, Freddie Peralta. All right, let's get into it. Hey, by the way, can you hit that thumbs up? 200 may be steep. We got 800 people with us, though. Take a single second to atone for your sins here on the Stokastic MLB Deeper Dive. You'll feel better about life. A weight will be lifted off your shoulders. You just hit that thumbs up. You go, oh, my God, is that all it took? Let's talk about Colorado and Milwaukee. Freddie Peralta, first guy we got to talk about. Massive ownership. And normally you'd look at something and go, man, that's ridiculous. But his price point against arguably the worst offense in baseball, the game's not at Coors Field, is pretty crazy. Now, negative leverage for sure. A lot of times you're going to get this when these guys are that high owned. But Freddie Peralta with a 29% K rate against the Rockies away from Coors. We got to talk about this one.
They're so bad. The Rockies are so
not good.
So bad. 23.9% K rate, but you got to remember Grichuk, Crone gone. They're adding guys like Brenton Doyle to the back of this lineup more and more. Montero has been in there routinely with his 173 expected batting average and 39.5% K rate. There's a reason his prop is sitting at 8.5 in the strikeout department there. Yeah, it's a plus money on the over there, but I'm still just, it's a really popular pitcher. What's happened a lot in the Sims tool, though, is that we see guys like Freddie Peralta kind of get shorted out. He's not for me at the moment, so I'm not sure what to make of that. He's 9,600 against Colorado outside of Coors, and this lineup on the whole strikes out more than that 23.9% that they are on the aggregate for the season. So I am pretty sure that this is good chalk. It's just a question of Spencer Strider. He's still got to be better in some capacities than a Logan Webb for $200 more. Brian Bayo's a decent pivot at 1/10 of the ownership at the moment against Kansas City, an equally piss poor baseball team. So it's still a spot where you're going to need Freddie Peralta to put up a good outing, even against a terrible Colorado team. But I'm totally with you. I think this is some warranted ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good spot. I mean, you could be getting a double-digit Ks game here for sure against Colorado. He's going to be popular, but did you say the Sims tool was still giving you a lot of Peralta?
Yeah, I was still getting right north of 55% of him, which normally we run into situations like this. Spencer Strider's also jumping up everywhere for me, getting to a lot of cheap stacks here at the moment, which is a little bit interesting to me because it makes me want to get to more of these Braves, get to more of the expensive bats. But Texas makes it pretty easy for me to put together whatever I want. They're my highest owned stack at the moment against Waldichuk. And then I am playing the other side of that too with a cheap Waldichuk who makes it easier to get to some Strider. That entire game, it's just like a both sides of it, almost like an MMA fight where you're just looking for one side to go nuts. But I am really, really hoping that we end up running into some Texas bats and having them be the winning difference of this slate, mainly because of the positive leverage that you're able to get on them. And they just kind of fit nicely with Peralta plus whomever type builds here. But I really, really like myself Spencer Strider on the top end. And well, a 9,800 or a 9,600 Freddie Peralta makes it a lot easier than Garrett Cole 11-3 to still get to some decent bats.
Milwaukee against Peter Lambert. I think we probably got to dig into this one a little bit before we move on to San Fran and LA. They don't look bad in the top stack tool. I mean, leverage is whatever, like -1 or 2%, but top 5 top stack probability. I think they're around top 5 or 6 in stack score as well. You're talking about a guy in Lambert who on the season is striking guys out 20%, probably a little bit below league average there. 4.71 xFIP. Obviously, he's outside of cores, which helps. But 1.63 home runs per 9. So there have been some issues with power here, Eric. And while Milwaukee isn't the most star-studded lineup from an offensive perspective, is this a team you're getting any of today?
Milwaukee, yeah, I'm getting to them. I mean, you have a 5.16 FIP for Peter Lambert, 4.71 xFIP, 4.69 expected ERA. Yeah, he's maybe running a little bit bad in that department here over the course of the season, but he's thrown this 20.2% K rate is actually way up from any sample size that we have of him. He pitched when he was 22 years old, 2019, 13.6% K rate. Nice to see certain things showing him to be maybe a capable big league pitcher down the line, but as it stands right now, he's not. The four-seamer, changeup, slider, nothing really working in sync with anything. The changeup seems to be decent, but I definitely have interest in this Milwaukee side.
Chuck said, Laffy, I felt pretty bad this morning, hit a deer, but then I hit the like button. My conscience is clear. I just washed himself clean, man. It is a beautiful thing. Not the hitting the deer part, but the whole what that can do for you. All right. Oh yeah, and Eric, you talked about the Sims tool. You guys want to use it? It's in the description. It's in chat. Our own CEO Tom Kennedy had mentioned he stopped playing MLB DFS a little while ago. Like keeping up with the competition in MLB DFS is crazy. And we developed this Sims tool. He started using that, just banked like 56,000 yesterday, I think it was.
God.
Using the Sims tool, which is awesome. Like we just seen so many huge wins with it. It's a massive difference maker. And I'm so excited to have it for baseball. More importantly, for me personally, as someone who thoroughly enjoys playing NFL DFS, I'm excited to know that we got it coming down the pike for NFL as well.
I can't wait. And especially knowing that we have the functionality now to handle up to 10,000 lineups at a time for you. I mean, it's a huge difference for me in my process for MLB, being able to crunch out 10,000 lineups, being able to contribute, get exactly what percentage it is to first attach to it in terms of ROI and what you're looking at from a specific lineup to be able to achieve for you. There's no better tool on the market right now. Pre-contest simulator, and then be able to go back through your lineups, the post-contest simulator. I think that's probably the most under-talked about thing that we do on these shows. Being able to look at your results the next morning, take 10 minutes with your coffee before you tune into the strategy show with Laffy and Josh, and just check out, how did your lineups look the night before? Did everything come across the way that you were anticipating once the cards were flipped, once you saw what ownership was? So it's always a tool that I'm checking in with now. It's a part of my process. It's kind of ingrained in it. I'm starting to get better in terms of being able to replicate a field and trying to make things that way. But what an amazing tool. Up to 10,000 lineups you can now utilize. I'd definitely be giving that a check. I'd be checking it out if you haven't already.
If there's ever been like a tool to actually level the playing field, put you in a position where you can legitimately bank tournaments. Here it is. It's the Sims tool, but you guys already knew that. Anyway, link in the description and in chat to that. San Francisco and LA. Let's talk about Logan Webb and Patrick Sandoval. 8.5 run total in LA. That would look a whole lot different if we were talking about this game being in San Francisco. Logan Webb's a good pitcher, and Josh had talked about it a lot today. Logan Webb's absolutely a good pitcher. He does not allow considerable power whatsoever. Right around 1 home run per 9 on the season. That's pretty low. 2.96 xFIP, 3.37 FIP, but 25% K rate. Not elite, not bad, well above average. But I'm going to ask you the same question. Like, how do you prioritize him when we're also talking about all of these other guys and also a 50% owned Freddie Peralta?
It's really, really hard. Peralta, Cole, he's got to beat a lot of guys on this slate. And you brought it up, sub 3 xFIP. That's the thing that jumps off the page with it. But still a 17.3% home run per fly ball. Still not going to be the best strikeout guy, even though he's got, 3 wins above replacement over the course of this season. Across the board, he looks like a really, really good real-life pitcher. It's just that we're playing DFS in this specific scenario, and so you have to be attributing the 24.7% K rate relative to the other guys. You have to be able to compare them, compared to the other guys and know, Logan Webb, there's a lot of paths where this doesn't go as well for him with a 46% hard hit percentage. Does he have a north of a 60% ground ball rate and have a lot of outs against an Angels lineup that is quite obviously not very good? Losers of 6 of their last 7, pretty dead in the water in the AL West. Yeah, it's a great spot for Logan Webb, but can he generate the strikeouts still compared to these other guys? I'm going to say most of the time, no. And then you look at his ownership relative to these other guys, and I prefer Strider with positive leverage. I prefer Cole with positive leverage. I definitely prefer Senga, weather pending. 21.4% ownership on him is pretty hefty on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, where he's sub 10%, that's where it gets fun. But you still have Garrett Cole sitting there at 5% that it would be hard for me to land on there. Other than just, being over the field on both of them and shorting the Peralta Strider side of things that are going to account for 50% of lineups on FanDuel today. So I'm looking at the Logan Webb side of things, and I see a path for him pitching 7, getting 6 here, but I don't think that's enough on this given slate.
How about Patrick Sandoval? We've actually seen his ownership come up a little bit throughout the day. Projected ownership, 13%. He's $7,000, so he's not particularly expensive. Next game, we'll talk about really the only other viable guy in that price range, and Dane Dunning going up against Oakland, and he's getting almost twice the ownership as Patrick Sandoval. Negative leverage though to Sandoval, but I think it's at least worth us discussing whether or not against this San Francisco team you have some interest here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a better chance at success than a Cole Reagans, than a Gavin Williams, than these other guys that I've said that I like on this slate. But it's basically people landing on a 7K Patrick Sandoval as the comfortable play. And it feels like I want to get riskier just to avoid the 12.6% ownership, which isn't a ton on an 8-game slate, but I'm able to trim that down by a third going to a Gavin Williams or to Cole Reagans on the cheap end. I just find myself landing more in that range so I can afford the expensive pitchers. Feel like I've said that throughout this show, but it's just the way that the data comes together. And it seems as though Patrick Sandoval, the strikeout upside just really isn't there in a prominent way where I want to go over the field on an 18.6% K rate against a San Francisco team that, for all intents and purposes, is going to be playing the platoon game all game long.
For sure. And it's kind of unfortunate because San Francisco, you look at this active roster, against left-handed pitching this season, they have not been particularly good at all. They have a 91 WRC plus. That's bottom 5 in the league. They're striking out at a 23.8%, which I think is also top 10 in the league. Like, it's not a bad matchup for a lefty here. 128 ISO for the San Francisco Giants. That's bottom 10, bottom 5 in the league. It's just, can Sandoval with his 19% K rate take advantage of a pretty appealing matchup for a lefty?
Yeah, it would be awesome to be able to run into some spots where you're not going to see these San Francisco bats disappear, but Austin Slater, pinch hit risk. AJ Pollock, pinch hit risk. Probably not JD Davis here in this spot. Him and Wilmer Flores probably okay in the middle of that lineup. You got Conforto, who's in there left on left. He should be good for the entire game. Luis Matos, pinch hit risk. there's enough pieces there where putting 5-mans aren't necessarily my favorite thing to be doing. But AJ Pollock, new acquisition here, he's been pretty dust. Maybe he can find some form here better than his 349 expected slugging. Wasn't really getting the opportunity there in Seattle anymore. I think there's an outside shot where you can get to some of these guys, but in no way really a priority. But I would expect to see Lamont Wade Jr., Jock Peterson, those guys showing up at some point in time. It's just hard to know exactly when. And as he said, Patrick Sandoval, popular enough where I'd want to get to some bats against him. I just don't know necessarily how I want to do that yet.
Let's close this one out, man. We're going to hit 200 likes too. We're only
Shohei Ohtani, pretty good one-off play.
Yeah, not bad. As always, shout out to you guys for supporting the show. Hopefully you enjoy it throughout these dog days of summer before the NFL arrives. But you've got Dane Dunning. Look, he's never going to excel as far as strikeouts go, but last game, double-digit strikeouts. He has performed well in some of these easy matchups too. I think it was like Detroit earlier in the season. Yep. What, the 28th
10 strikeouts
of June? Another like a 10 strikeout game there. So it's not like he can't do it. It's just few and far between. Now here's the difference. It's also a good matchup against a really bad Oakland team, and it's in Oakland, which favors the pitcher. So are you playing, you mess around with that 20% Dane Dunning ownership today?
Yeah, I probably am, because Oakland is just that god awful that I think that there's a path. And as you said, he's beating up on bad teams, but this is a bad team I would love for him to beat up on. I think I'm a little bit surprised that Patrick Sandoval is pulling as much ownership. I thought this would all flood in to a guy like Dane Dunning. And don't get me wrong, he's got negative leverage. I mean, we're talking compared to Freddie Peralta, who is an undoubtedly good play. It's just a question of how crazy that ownership gets. I mean, you play him in cash, you move on with your life. You play him with another expensive piece. It should be decent enough to get to some cheapies. You don't have a Coors Field. You don't have some standout spot you have to jam on this slate. It should be easy in cash to do those things. But I thought Dane Dunning would end up more popular than 20%, 25% owned. FanDuel, probably not necessarily looking to go nuts with him, even at 5.3% ownership. Too many guys on a one-pitcher site who I think can go out and break the slate above him. But on DraftKings, I'm above 20% at the moment against Oakland, and I'm just fine with it. They've got a 25.3% K rate against righties on the season. They are starting some guys who nobody knew their names until 2 weeks ago. And it's just, I mean, Cody Thomas, JJ Bleday, Zach Geloff, what are we doing here? This is an atrocious lineup in an amazing ballpark. I am just fine with as much Dane Dunning as you really want to get to, understanding fully that at a 17% K rate, that's going to be more of what you get day in, day out. But he at least is backed up by the fact that he's a really good real-life pitcher, whereas you can't say the same for a guy like Patrick Sandoval.
All right, we're up against it. So let's close this one out with some easy analysis here on Texas and Ken Waldichuk. Texas, second highest top stack probability. You're always going to have to pay for them, but they're popping in the top stack tool. Second highest stack score as well. Against Waldichuk, they have an implied total north of 5.5. So there's that. And then there's Ken Waldichuk if you're trying to get real crazy and go cheap. Round us out, man, before we turn the page over to Greg and Neil for Live Before Lock.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with this stack today. It's a bummer that Josh Young went out and had his thumb broken, but you're taking a $4,900 third baseman bat and you're making him somebody cheaper. And that's one of the benefits of having an injury like that. I mean, it sounds ridiculous putting it that way, but you're going to get some kind of Mitch Garver, possibly DH, and giving you opportunity to get to another righty against Waldichuk, who north of a 6 ERA, nothing really good across the board. He does have some strikeout stuff that's starting to show up, and Texas does have some strikeouts available in this projected lineup, but Ken Waldichuk, a 430 expected slugging, 345 xWOBA. Texas, my favorite stack to get to. Adolis Garcia, my home run shout out.
Beautiful. Hey, follow Eric. I almost said shit my money DFS. It's just second nature. At Eric Lindquist, Mia Lafayette _D. Shout out to Jordan Klein, as always, for producing this one and for putting together our brand new Hall of Fame segment coming up right now in between this and Live Before Lock. We took off for this a little while because some personnel got moved around at Stokastic, and now it's back. And man, do we have some monster wins from the past couple of weeks here. All of them repping that Stokastic avatar, getting the free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, gathering their family and friends around and saying, look at what I did. They're so happy. But in all seriousness, Stokastic.com/avatar. Rock that avatar wherever it is you play. We'll see you back here for the next one. Stick around. Greg and Neil coming up next. Peace. Yo, we're back. It's been a little while, but here we are. Bigger than ever. Stokastic Hall of Fame, inducting you fine fellas into it. And of course, giving out a boatload of free monthly Stokastic Plus Platinum memberships. $120 value to all of you. And all you need to do in order to get up here on the board, get inducted into the Hall of Fame, get your free month, download the Stokastic avatar, profile picture. It's Stokastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever the hell it is that you play. And then when you do win, tweet those wins at Stokastic HOF with the shout out and the screenshot so we can see it. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, boom, you're in. Free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum and this fine video that you can show all of your friends. This crowning achievement. We'll kick it off with Dave Oliver. Dave, huge week not long ago. Thank you guys. Stokastic tools are hands down the best. Finished first for 20K and then 5th, 23rd, 45th, all the way down. A huge day for Dave Oliver, and there were more. We just don't have enough room in this one to put them. Warren Harmon just got another second place in MLB. My life's changing so fast, and the tools of Stokastic are real, and they truly work. Shout out to Stokastic. $10,000 second place in the relay throw. And how about S. Schaefer back again? Love the new lineup simulator tool at Stokastic. Takes building MME lineups to the next level. Also, tip of the hat to our boys EMAC and Gundacker for providing pre-slate analysis on Live Before Lock. $2,500 win for Schaefer. And Timothy Holmes, this is how we do it. Yes, it is. Weasel 8, $25,000 win rocking the Stokastic avatar. Huge win, Timothy. Congratulations, man. And Maui, thanks Stokastic. Glad the Yankees came through today. On to the next one. $1,500 in the mini-max, followed up by Donald Thorne or Donald Duck 2476, $10,000 win. Thanks to everyone at Stokastic, especially Laffy, Josh, Adam. I think this qualifies for a free month at Stokastic. Can't wait to get reacquainted with the tools. Appreciate all the content. Donald Duck Thorne. Bill White, thanks for the info. I'll take second any day of the week. Hell yeah, man. $5,000 again in the mini max. We have just owned the mini max lately over at Stokastic. Michael P. Clement, thank you guys. Best tools in the industry. Best show on YouTube. Clem 822, $5,000. First place, another big one. And Sean Geezy, my first season playing MLB DFS and booked a win. Always, as always, thanks to the crew and the rest of the Stokastic crew for the best tools and content in the game. $7,500 in, well, the Mega Mini Max. Lock it up. Sam Van Dam, love this one. Little Hall of Fame game action. Not a bad way to start the NFL season. Thanks to Matt Kajeski for the analysis and Laffy for the content last night on the show. Stokastic stays the best. Almost $600 in some preseason Hall of Fame action. Can't beat that. David Simmons, thanks for all the valuable information you guys bring to the game. Total game changer. $1,500 for David Simmons. Slim Lancaster 22. And Fantasy Sports or MK Palco something. Thanks for the Live Before Lock today. Almost took one down. $1,500 second place for our pal Fantasy Sports. And then Marvin, I told you, just loaded today. Hey, needed that free month of platinum and a shout out Laffy and ship my money. My first time winning any contest in any sport. That's awesome, man. Put your boy in the Stokastic Hall of Fame. I'm going for the Millie Maker season. $1,000 from Marvelous Mac Man in the solo shot. And the last two here, our boy, the Maharishi. Beats 35,000 entries only to finish second to another Stokastic logo. You love seeing that. First and second rocking the Stokastic Abby. I'll definitely take it, though. Never been an MME guy, but the lineup generator makes it quick and easy. Yeah, it's also $4.48 for your first week. Link in the chat and in the description. Paul Hall, looks like I made it. Stokastic Hall of Fame runner-up in the $1. Listen regularly, and Greg Ehrenberg sent me to low-owned MKE as I only hand-build 1 or 2 lineups a night. This was a good one entry. Thanks to the crew. And even Eric Lindquist, $300 to Paul Hall. That will do it. Remember, Stokastic.com/avatar. rock it wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and send those screenshots over to us. It's Stokastic HOF. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time, and welcome back. You've been here before, and get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum along the way. See you back here for another edition of the Hall of Fame next week.
Yeah, I can see. I just need the account. You're not putting your hands or anything. All right, everybody, what's happening? This is Live Before Lock, and am I lagging? Am I not? I guess we're about to find out here. Jordan's laughing at me, which makes me think this might be going poorly right now, but internet a little bit slow today. And, in honor of just trying to make sure we have the slowest show possible, we got Neil Orfield on here as well. So, we're not going to be the quickest duo in the world potentially today. But as you guys come in, if you do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are sponsored today by Boom Fantasy. We'll be talking more about them as we go here, as per usual. It's got a great free square that's going to help you guys make some money that we'll highlight here in a little bit. So if you want to sign up for Boom Fantasy, use the link below in the description box, make a deposit using the promo code Stokastic1, up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. And like I said, we're going to be highlighting a free square here. Neil, not too much lag there. Did I make it through okay?
Yeah, you made it through okay. The start of the show for me was pretty entertaining because I watched Jordan do the countdown, and then he points at you, and then there's like a 3 seconds before you start going, which is kind of funny for me. But other than that, yeah, going great so far.
All right. So already I realized that we're having an issue in terms of I talk, and then it seems like it takes you forever to respond to me talking. But it's funny because on my screen, I see you clearly. I see Jordan clearly. All the words come back to me right away out of your mouth, but apparently it's not reciprocated in the same way. So what is it? What is that's going on when I talk right now? Because it doesn't seem issues on my end.
You're just like your face is like jumping all over. Like there's just no, you're very Jordan's mimicking right now. If you can't see it, just kind of like jerky. Like you kind of look like you're doing like the robot or something. It's really hard to, I don't know how to describe it exactly. I've never seen anything like it. You are blurry as usual. As you were telling us before the show, that's just kind of your look. We're used to you being blurry, but we're not used to you being quite so jerky.
Yeah, it's not great. I see right away we've got in the YouTube chat, David Vitti saying Greg needs to hit up Verizon. They're on their way here, but unfortunately it's not immediate. But I've got a service call coming. Somebody from Verizon is coming by bright and early in the morning tomorrow to make sure that we get everything sorted out. But yeah, it's a little dog shit right now. We're doing the most that we possibly can given the situation at hand, but sometimes shit happens and there's not a whole lot that we could do about it. But Neil, I want to know, number one, how was your weekend?
It was good. I'm trying to even remember what I did this weekend. It was not extremely eventful. We last night I had my fantasy draft, so I went out to a bar, drafted keeper league, unlimited keeper league for football. So which didn't go well. It's one of the rare fantasy football drafts that I came out of it thinking I don't feel like my team got stronger. I think that we're past the point now where you can just like reliably like look at players that are like low on the list of, so I did it on Sleeper, like low on the list in terms of ADP on Sleeper. I was thinking I'm going to be able to get Zamir White in the last round. He went in like the I don't know, 16th round of a 20-round draft or something. Like a lot of players being drafted well ahead of where I thought they were going to be. So that was a little bit disappointing for me. Yeah, I don't remember. I know that my wife and I went out on Saturday. We did something. I can't really remember the weekend all that well.
Yeah, I mean, the weekend was great. I had internet and everything, and then
did you have internet this weekend?
Shit went to hell apparently as soon as I had to get back here.
What did you do anything fun with your internet all weekend?
Oh, not that I would say publicly.
Smart. That was wise.
Yeah. No, I mean, just the usual arms deals, some drug deals, pornographic material, nothing out of the ordinary, but nothing
stuff
that I would also want to admit to in front of however many thousands of people watch this show. So, nothing out of the ordinary. By the way, just in case my internet totally craps out, I want to make sure that I bring this to you guys. Boom Fantasy. I was going to talk about their free square in a few minutes, but I will do it now instead because I want to make sure you guys make the easiest you possibly can. Because when you sign up at Boom Fantasy, like I said below, using the link that we have below, you use that promo code Stokastic1 for up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. Yuri Perez is back up with the Marlins. Great young pitching prospect, but his over-under for strikeouts for tonight over at Boom Fantasy is 99.5. I like the under quite a bit on that. So go take advantage of that, guys, because, sometimes you need to make money to be able to afford your internet bill. And the best way to do that is Yuri Perez under 99.5 strikeouts. Do you like the under on that one, Neil?
I'm taking the under. I'm looking at our projections, relying on the tools as usual. We have Yuri Perez for orders of magnitude lower than 99 strikeouts. So I'm in on the under.
So let's go ahead and start talking about some of the pitchers that we have to talk about on the slate. And one thing I made sure to do is I loaded all of the data up on my screen. So it would already be here because I know it would be potential disaster if I was trying to start loading data while we were doing the show here together. So we've got the most popular pitcher on the slate is Freddie Peralta, projected for 50% ownership. Behind him, we have Spencer Strider at 38.5% ownership. And then, when you got one pitcher 50% owned, one pitcher 40% owned, there's only so much owner to allocate to other pitchers. So everybody else kind of becomes relatively contrarian. So at the top end, Neil, we've got a handful of guys that are priced above 9,000. Basically, all of the ownership is going to Spencer Strider and Freddie Peralta. So I want to start by asking you this. What are you doing with the two chalk plays? Do you have a preferred option between Peralta and Strider? Do you like both of them? Do you like neither? What are you doing with the chalk pitcher?
It's Strider for me over Peralta if I'm just playing one of them. Strider, clearly a lot more expensive than Peralta. So what I did is I set my cap at 50% on pitchers, and I have 50% of each of Strider and Peralta. There's a part of me that's thinking that maybe I need to adjust a little bit to get more Garrett Cole, because we've actually got some positive leverage there. But yeah, of the top two, I'm going to go with the guy who has the 10% better chance of being a top two pitcher at 12% lower ownership. It kind of makes sense because he is also 3,000 more expensive. So I get it. I get why Peralta is getting the ownership, but like in a vacuum, yeah, if you can get Strider, you're paying up for Strider all day. What are you doing with these guys?
That could be part of the tricky part, because in terms of what I'm actually doing, ideally still playing the slate, but if I'm not able to build lineups, I might have to withdraw them. So I'm just going to tell you, like, hypothetically, if I am able to play this slate, what I'm going to end up doing here, because I am trying to build out some lineups while we're going over the course of this as well. But I'm with you. If I have to roster one of these guys, it is going to be Spencer Strider. So number one, he already has a pretty good matchup against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but he's also kind of been price and matchup proof for DFS this year, where what you need for Spencer Strider to be, in an optimal lineup, he's going to score his fantasy points basically every start. Like, getting like somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 30 fantasy points or so basically every time out. The question becomes, what do the players on the slate do, right? So when it comes to both Strider and Peralta, I'm also going to lean towards Strider if I have to pick one. I think his ownership is about efficient. Peralta is a great play. Cash game's super easy. You just play both of these guys. For Peralta, I'm inclined to come underweight to the 50% on him just because it's such a big number. But if I was really building out all my lineups and curating them how I wanted to, I probably would ultimately be underweight to the field on both of them just because they are so popular, but closer to the field on Strider than I would be with Peralta at north of or right at 50% ownership.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I'm actually, even with the field on Peralta, I just gave a boost to Garrett Cole, did not bring down my ownership on either of Peralta or Strider. So now I'm up to 27% Garrett Cole. I still have 50% Peralta and Strider in those lineups, and I don't hate that. I think they're all, in good enough spots. Their prices are good enough that I think that they all make a lot of sense.
And then on the high end, are there any other pitchers you like getting to? Because I know you mentioned that Garrett Cole, who I assume, is it fair to say Garrett Cole is your favorite pivot off of Strider and Peralta?
Yeah, I think it would have to be Garrett Cole. I mean, Senga looks pretty good too. Actually, maybe he's another one that I have to think about how much I have, because Senga actually looks really good in the top pitchers tool as well. I don't know if the home road splits are still a thing. At one point, Kodai Senga was much better at home than on the road, as pointed out by our friend Sean. I actually have not tracked whether that has held up for this year, but it's a nice enough matchup with the Cubs either way. Yeah, I think Garrett Cole is probably my top payout against the White Sox. Followed by, top pivot payout against the White Sox outside of obviously Strider and Peralta. Cole looks really good, 13% ownership, 21% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Senga actually looks really good as well, 8% ownership, 16% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I don't hate Logan Webb. There's a little bit of negative leverage there, but nice matchup with the Angels, 20% ownership going to Logan Webb, 16% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So honestly, we've got pretty good pay up options all around today.
Yeah, and then when it comes to all these pitchers, because, I know that you were just able to make a case for all of them, but all things now being considered, if you had to roster just one of these pay-up options that isn't Strider or Peralta, between Cole, Senga, Webb, we'll throw Brian Bayo into the mix as well at 9K. Of those guys, who'd be the one pick that you go to differentiate at the high end?
Probably Cole. Yeah, I'd probably just go to Garrett Cole. How about you?
I'm going to go with Senga here. If you look at our projections on the two of them, it is comparable, 20.6% chance for Garrett Cole to be a top 2 scoring pitcher. Kodai Senga, 16.4%. The ownership, 13% on Cole, 8% on Senga. So you're getting lesser ownership on Senga. But the other thing too here that's going to be important to me, $1,300 cheaper on Kodai Senga. And when we talk about offenses, I like the Braves quite a bit today. I think they're an under-owned offense. And one thing that is really hard about trying to get to the Braves, they're really expensive. So I do think when we're talking about our pitchers, we have to be somewhat price sensitive if we want to play the Braves. If you guys don't want to play the Braves and you want to go somewhere else, it's a different story. But do you like the Braves today, Neil? Is that a team that you're getting overweight to?
Yeah, I mean, Braves obviously look very good today. Let me check my actual stack ownership. Yeah, the Braves are my highest exposed stack. We have nice positive leverage on the Braves. So yeah, I think it makes sense to try to get to the Braves. I'm going to be overweight to the field there.
So with that in mind, I think we do have to be cost sensitive at pitching and try to figure out like, hey, how can we save money at pitcher to try to get to some more of our Braves stacks? And that's where I think even those little things like the $1,300 salary savings and Kodai Senga compared to Garrett Cole is really going to be important for me tonight. And then, of course, trying to identify what we want to do on the cheap end, because everybody's playing Strider, everybody's playing Peralta. That's why the Braves are under-owned today. That's why we've got the Braves projected for, 7% ownership with a 15% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate, because everybody's paying up for a pitcher. So with that in mind, what are you doing on the low end? Nobody's popular. Once you get below the price point of Freddie Peralta, the next most popular pitcher is Dylan Cease at 16% ownership at the Yankees. Dane Dunning, 14% owned. You got Patrick Sandoval at 17%. Are there any standout cheap pitchers for you tonight?
Getting to 16% Dylan Cease, 9% Dane. So I guess the answer is no. Like, I'm not jamming in any of the cheap pitchers. Kind of spread out to a bunch of different cheap pitchers, but Dylan Cease being the most at 16%. Really not taking any hard stands on cheap pitchers. Now I'm actually questioning myself. So I did go in and I gave boosts to Garrett Cole, Kodai Senga to try to get to more of these high-end pitchers. But you're making a good point that the Braves look so good and they are expensive. Maybe I'm making a mistake by trying to jam in these high-end pitchers a little bit too much, even if there is positive leverage. I'm debating it a little bit, but yeah, currently I'm getting to a little bit of Dylan Cease. He's still not really cheap at 8,500, but he's a little bit of a different price tier than like the Striders, Cole, Senga, etc. So a little bit of Dylan Cease. Outside of Cease, I guess Dane Dunning, 7,200 is my next highest exposed at 9%. Really not taking any major stands on cheap pitchers. Are you making any big stands here?
So the other part of this too, I want to ask you then is, if you're not making any stands on cheap pitchers, has that in any way prohibited you from being able to pay up for the Braves?
So I am. So
or are you
currently
just
I
playing
have
more hitters from the bottom of the Braves lineup?
Yeah, so currently I do have 8 lineups that have Braves 5-man stacks in them. And looking at the pitchers in those lineups specifically, I have the most Drew Smiley, followed by Ryu, followed by Dunning, Cease, Webb. So that is where all of my cheap pitchers are coming in, are in those Brave stacks. Yeah, so I guess Drew Smiley is the one that is allowing me the most. I have 43% Drew Smiley in my. I'm looking at the 7 that don't have the pitcher in there, but that don't have Strider with the Braves. But in those, Drew Smiley is getting him in 3 of my 7 Braves lineups. I'm only playing 44 lineups today, but I'm getting the Braves as my highest owned stack. Drew Smiley, the one who I'm getting to the most of within those stacks. Who are you playing in your Braves lineups?
Well, I mean, part of the issue too, trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to build lineups over the course of the show here. So don't really have that to rely on quite as much. So I'm just kind of looking at some of the data that we have on the site and drawing some conclusions for that. But I can tell you just based on the data we have, like I want to be overweight to the Braves on this slate if I'm able to play it. I think part of this have be cheap at pitcher at some point, and just going to bottom of the order Braves bats and stuff like that. But if you want to play, the big boppers at the top of the order for the Braves, then you have to really try to mix in some of these sort of cheap pitchers. And I don't really think you could feel great about a lot of them. But the good news is I do think there's a couple with strikeout upside that are picking up almost no ownership that we could highlight here. One of them being Drew Smiley, who's only projected for 2% ownership against the Mets. And Drew Smiley, not particularly great, but we do know that he is about you and I are running our lineups through our Sims tool. We're getting to lots of exposure to Drew Smiley, which, by the way, if anyone wants to sign up for the Sims tool, there's a link below in the description box that's going to allow you to sign up for that and take you right to our website. But Drew Smiley, even though he gave a bunch of runs, he still had an okay fantasy outing in that start against the Reds because he struck out a bunch of guys. He struck out like about 2 hitters per inning in that start. You've got a Mets team now that appears to be fairly checked out to me. If you guys have looked at some, like Adam's tweets about the Mets recently and where he's mentioned, like, do these guys not give a shit? Can they catch the ball? Like, I know a lot of Mets fans, the vitriol is directed towards Buck Showalter and the job he's doing managing, which admittedly hasn't been great, but the players kind of suck now too. And it's gotten to a point where they traded away some pieces at the deadline. They're no longer competing. And I do think the players have checked out to a certain degree, and it is impacting some of their performance on the field. So the matchup that Drew Smiley has against the Mets, we know for sure it's easier now than we expected to be at the start of the season. And getting into the second half of the year, I think it only gets easier because this Mets team, just what are they playing for at this point? I don't think that there's all that much motivation for the players to be locked in all the time. And we have seen that be a narrative that's really come into play here in the second half of the season. So Drew Smiley is one that I could make a case for. The other one, Gavin Williams, pitching against the Toronto Blue Jays, who while they have a potent offense, Gavin Williams is one of the top young pitching prospects in baseball. A fastball gets touch 100 miles per hour. He's got great swing and miss stuff. So those are a couple of guys I think we could look at very minuscule ownership and not all that hard to differentiate some lineups and save money to get up to the Braves. Drew Smiley, 2% owned. Gavin Williams, 3% owned. So those are a couple of players that I like getting to let me save salary, differentiate lineups, play up for the Braves. Really contrarian too, playing the Braves and some of these cheap pitchers. Does anybody like that get into your player pool at all?
Yeah, definitely Drew Smiley. Gavin Williams did not actually make it into my lineup at all in my last crunch. That is an interesting idea. Maybe I need to force in a little bit more Gavin Williams. I don't love the matchup with Toronto. I have such trouble believing that the Mets are like checked out. Like, what are they playing for? They're playing for money, right? Like, these are Major League Baseball players. You'd think that they would.
They got guaranteed contracts though. The money's hitting their bank account either way.
I mean, for the next contract, though, some of these players you think are at least thinking about their next contract. But yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like these are not, they're not playing up to their abilities. So maybe they are checked out to an extent. Probably not actively checked out, but maybe they're like subconsciously checking out. I don't know. It's I am getting to a lot of so yes, Drew Smiley, I am getting to as my highest exposed pitcher within my Braves stacks. You brought up the idea of like, am I just getting to Braves bats that are at the end of the order? And I am very much so getting to, I actually just looked at it and I thought, do I have my randomness off or something? Because I looked at my Brave stacks and I had 100% Michael Harris from the 9-hole in my Brave stacks, which I don't like to see. I like to, like, if I'm playing a lot of one stack, I don't want to have one player in all of those. I just recrunch, and now I have Now I have 100% Ozzy Albies. Oh, actually, now I have both 100% Ozzy Albies, 100% Michael Harris, and then 87% in the 8-hole Orlando Arcia. So I am getting to a good amount of back of the order Braves, which is allowing me to get to 5-man Braves stacks as well. Also a good amount of Eddie Rosario. There really isn't a bat in the order for the Braves that I'm not getting to at all. I think I'm getting to every single bat for the Braves. But yeah, I am getting to a good amount of Michael Harris. I think he's 4,200. He's really not even that cheap. Yeah, really, are there any cheap Braves bats? I'm looking through them. Like even at the back of the order, we got Ozuna in the 6-hole at 4,500. Rosario is 3,900. I think he might be the cheapest Braves bat. Even Arcia is 4,100. So like you don't have any mega cheap Braves bats. You kind of need to pay down at pitcher. So which is why I'm getting to a good amount of Drew Smyly in those Braves lineups now in this latest run. So now I have 8 5-man Brave stacks. I do have 25% Cole Reagans as well, getting into a good amount of my lineups. Dane Dunning in 25%. So kind of spreading it out with all of these cheaper pitchers, allowing me to play some Braves 5-man stacks.
And is Hyun-Jin Ryu another guy who's made it into any of your lineups? Because I'm also finding myself a little bit overweight to him, which you can't feel great about. And in his first start of the season, you and I were stacking against Hyun-Jin Ryu pretty heavily, because I'm pretty sure you and I did that show together. And what happens? His first start back from Tommy John surgery at the big leagues. He's made some minor league rehab starts. He goes out, he looks fairly terrible, pitches 5 innings, gives up 4 runs, strikes out 3. The thing that was at least the biggest encouragement to me is that he made it through 5 innings. The most likely scenario here is I think he probably looks like shit. But at the same time, too, he's going up against the Cleveland Guardians team that is a watered-down version of their lineup. They traded Ahmed Rosario at the trade deadline, most notably. Great brawl. Not only of the season, maybe the MLB season as a whole for me, fighting Tim Anderson getting knocked out. But Hyun-Jin Ryu is somebody who has a history of being close to Cy Young caliber type pitcher. We've seen him finish not like necessarily in contention to win Cy Young, but there's been points in time where he's like 12-1, 14-1 to win Cy Young at the end of the season. So he's somebody else who I've noticed now, because I was just able to run a crunch of lineups, which is why I might have lagged a little bit harder for a few seconds there, is that Hyun-Jin Ryu is a cheap pitcher that's also showing up in Braves lineups.
So I'm actually not getting to any Ryu within my Braves lineups. I have one Ryu lineup in total. I do like the idea though, against this watered down Cleveland team. I was thinking that Jose Ramirez, I forgot that he appealed the suspension, so he's actually in the lineup today. So we don't actually get the benefit of Ramirez being out. But you totally lagged when you started talking about the brawl, which I think people are upset about because people really want to talk about this brawl with Jose Ramirez and Tim Anderson. I have no idea what you said about Tim Anderson. Maybe it's just me. But it was fun to see. It didn't look to me in the few times I've watched the video, didn't look like he hit him that hard. Like I'm like, does he just have like a super weak chin? It's probably there's a different angle where it would look like he hit him a lot harder, but it looked like a slap and he just was out cold. I'm sure it was harder than it looked in the video, but was kind of shocking to see that punch knock him out. But yeah, it was certainly a fun brawl. You don't get that many super fun brawls these days in really any sports. But did you want to say again, what were you saying about the brawl? You were saying it was a good brawl, something about Tim Anderson that I think people wanted to hear, but was not coming through.
Yeah, dude simply can't take a punch at all. So
right.
There's 3 people that I'm convinced have I'll say 4. These are the 4 weakest chins in the United States of America. Tim Anderson, Eric Lindquist, Jimmy Butler, and James Vick, if anybody watches the UFC. James Vick is somebody who would just instantly get KO'd anytime anything touched him. So, I mean, you got those kind of people. That's the tier that Tim Anderson is putting himself on. I get Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez, he's kind of built like a bowling pin. He looks kind of like, you remember Eric Mangini. He was the coach of the Jets, kind of had that pair built to him. That's exactly how Jose Ramirez built. A lot of low center of gravity. Right. And I do think he really dug his feet in. And I think he threw a pretty good overhand right there. But yeah, it landed on the chin on Tim Anderson. But still, did you see Tim Anderson try to get off the field after that?
Yeah, I saw that he was kind of stumbling. It not good.
Yeah. So I think part of it, that's the part of the story that people are not talking about, is that Tim Anderson, glass chin. He can't hit. He can't take a hit. He sucks at baseball. It's looking bleak for Tim Anderson. So a quick win bonus for sure on that one for Jose Ramirez. Anything else you want to talk about as far as pitchers go on this slate?
Yeah, no. So let me take a look at the see if there's anybody else that stands out in the top pitchers. So really, none of these cheap guys are like getting into a ton of my lineups. It kind of surprised me. We do have some positive leverage on Drew Smiley, so I am happy to see that of the cheap guys, he's the one that is making it into the majority of my Brave stacks. He's coming in at 3% ownership, 14% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. So I like Drew Smiley as a pay down option. Peter Lambert looks interesting, at least in the top pitchers duel. 1% projected ownership, 23% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, 4% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. He is also the cheapest of the viable pitchers, which means that he's going to allow you to get to some lineups potentially that no other pitcher on the slate can get to. I mean, Cole Reagans is 5,200, looks just as good in the top pitchers tool with a 1% projected ownership, 25% projected ownership on Cole Reagans. So you could mix in Peter Lambert, Cole Reagans, the super cheap guys that are going to allow you to play the better parts of the Braves lineups. Yeah, Gavin Williams, interesting thought. He's a lot more expensive than those guys, more of a mid-range, 7,400. Not a great matchup with Toronto, but certainly I like the case you made for Gavin Williams as well. Dane Dunning obviously has a great matchup with Oakland. I like Dane Dunning at 7,200. I think he makes a lot of sense. I guess we didn't really talk about Brian Bayo, who does have some nice positive leverage against Kansas City. 4% ownership, 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 7% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. So I think we just wanted to mention him because we didn't really talk about him that much earlier when we were talking about the pay up pitching options. But I don't really think there's anybody else I want to go to all that much. Probably not going to Ken Waldichuk. I feel like he's just a worse version of the Reagans Lambert tier. Probably not playing Beto against the Braves. I guess you can make a case that there's leverage there. Like he looks good, but I still don't think I'm ever going to Beto against the Braves. Yeah, no, I think we've covered pitchers fairly well.
Is there but by the way, was Neil's internet cutting out for a second there too, Jordan, or was that just my thing fucking up again? Okay. I thought for a second, Neil froze on my screen for a second. I was like, is that one Neil or is that me? And I realized it was probably very likely me, but who knows? I thought maybe I could point my finger at somebody else too and be like, aha, somebody else is also fucking up over there. But one other thing I think we should do really quick before we move on, and then Jordan will build some lineups in the MLB lineup generator. So get that queued up for us. But really quick rundown of the pitchers over on FanDuel as well, where I think something we should talk about is, should the people listen, Neil, should they be playing Freddie Peralta or Spencer Strider as their pitcher in FanDuel cash games? Because we have a Strider project for 25% ownership, Peralta at 28%. Peralta is 10,500 on FanDuel. Strider 11,500. So you're getting $1,000 price savings on Peralta. Which one do you think is the safer option on FanDuel for today? Very comparable ownership.
It's an interesting. It's still probably Strider for me. I would have to see what lineups come out, like who you can play along with them in cash games. But it's still probably Strider at just 1,000 more. I feel like he's just the safer pitcher in general with the strikeouts. It's an interesting question because you do have like the win bonus, the quality start bonus. Freddie Peralta against Colorado outside of Coors seems as likely as anybody to get those bonuses too, which maybe kind of evens out the strikeout advantage to Strider a little bit. I'd have to see what lineups come out, but I think it would be Strider for me. Do you have a strong take? Who would be the better cash game pitcher on FanDuel?
Yeah, if there's ever a situation or somebody like Spencer Strider is Strider. Like there's so much strikeout upside that even you see some of these starts like, oh no, he gave up 4 or 5 runs or anything like that. And like, he'll still score 23, like a bunch of fantasy points just because he'll still strike out 8, 9, 10 hitters, which he does almost every start. His over under for strikeouts today is 9.5. He can miss his strikeout mark by, a significant amount and he strikes out, like 7 dudes. So I'm going to go with Strider as my option for FanDuel cash games.
Okay. Yeah. I think the Strider makes a lot of sense. Now, somebody in chat did say that I froze at some point and that you came back and you were clear after I froze. So maybe there was a brief period, and maybe because Jordan doesn't really watch his screen. He's shaking his head right now, but Jordan's not really watching us. I mean, I probably was frozen on the screen and Jordan just had no idea.
Very, very possible. All right. So yeah, it's actually been Neil's internet that's bad this entire time. Not mine. But Jordan, let's go look at some lineups in the MLB lineup generator. We'll do DraftKings, we'll do FanDuel, and we'll see what the lineup generator likes for today's slate. And if you guys have not signed up to it yet, less than $5 when you sign up for the first time using the link below. I know I had somebody messaged me on Twitter the other day, and he was wondering, hey, I want to sign up for a Stokastic. What and I told him a lineup generator. Because like I said, less than $5 if you're playing for the first time, you're trying to extend your DFS play. This is going to build the lineups for you. And also, there's still utility that you could use it to help you hand build some lineups, because if you want to just build out 20 lineups, you could look at some of the most exposed players you get, and you could build some lineups, hand build them around that, and make some stacks. So we'll start with DraftKings here, and let's go balanced today, Jordan. By the way, my favorite part about this, that now Jordan's doing the screen share, is I can now see in real time how laggy it looks to the audience when I talk. I could see it here.
Oh, nice. You can tell. I guess that makes sense. I enjoyed Jordan circling your face with the mouse for a second there. I was enjoying that.
Yeah, I figure he does that on most shows, though.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what comes up here. Build out some lineups, and just all of the Freddie Peralta, all of the Spencer Strider we guys saw there. We had 90% Peralta, 67% Strider. So lots of exposure to those guys, which totally makes sense. As far as stacks go, Boston, Milwaukee, the two teams that are popping up most frequently. How are you handling these teams? Boston, Milwaukee, are these teams that you have a lot of exposure to?
Yeah, definitely teams that I am interested in. I was building them when I was doing some drafts of these lineups. I was getting to a good amount of Boston. They're third in our top stacks tool, 11% chance to be in the top stack. I'm actually going to be underweight to the field on Boston, but seems like as good a spot as any in Fenway against Cole Reagans. I like Boston quite a bit. Milwaukee, nice matchup with Peter Lambert. Obviously, prefer that it's in Coors, but they're coming in at 9% ownership, 9% chance to be in the top stack. Not a team that I'm getting to a ton of. Where I'm building right now in Fantasy Frontier, but I mean, if it's what the lineup generator is going to give me, I know that these are going to be good lineups within those Milwaukee stacks. So yeah, I'm happy to play some Milwaukee if you're using the lineup generator tonight.
By the way, Jordan suggested, would I have less lag if I turn my camera off? The funny thing is, it would kind of be hard. I mean, we could test it right now. It would be hard to say because you wouldn't know when I'm talking, when I'm not talking. So we don't know when the words are coming out of my mouth, but we could test it right now and see if this goes a little bit better. I do see that we have some super chats that came in, but I'm not getting the tab that shows the super chats is not showing up on the YouTube chat for me, which is very bizarre because I don't think that's related to. Okay, cool. I did see that we had one from Mr. Coolcam who's saying, what is our favorite Contrarian bat on FanDuel? And then Jorge Jacomi super chat and asked us if we have any weather concerns for today. There are some spots with sketchy weather. The Braves Pirates game, that's a potential weather spot. There is a chance of rain in the Mets Cubs game, but it's not enough for me to change my exposure in any kind of significant way. So is there no risk on the slate? Not exactly, but I'm not altering my lineups in any way due to the weather. Are you, Neil?
I'm not. I was thinking about that. I was actually going to bring it up because I saw people in chat were bringing it up, and it is a really interesting thought because the rain coming early in the Atlanta-Pittsburgh game, it's like, well, if it comes in the third inning, we're going to have Spencer Strider out fairly early. Makes him a little bit riskier. Like it makes, I'm not concerned about the bats in that game. It does make me a little bit more concerned about the pitchers, but I don't think I'm adjusting for it. I think that, it's still pretty unlikely that they have an in-game delay. I think it's more likely that they delay the game ahead of the start rather than in game if they're going to delay it at all. But I mean, if they start on time and then it starts raining in the third inning, it's hard to predict those things. So there is at least a little bit of risk, but not enough that I think I'm factoring it in.
All right. So I did notice that after I asked you a question, there was still like a little bit of lag there. So I don't really think it makes a difference. I'm just going to turn my turn my camera on. The people do very much want to see me. It's something
they're here to see you, Greg. That's what they're here for. They're not even here for analysis. They just want to look at you.
No, most people disagree with my analysis anyway. There's no way they're listening to me.
They're all circling your face with their mouse, just like Jordan was.
Yeah, probably. Oh, so there was no more super chats anyway. It was just the one from Jorge, the one from Mr. Poolcam. Let me check our Discord to see what is in there that we could answer. And then as far as the players here, lots of Strider pitcher, lots of Peralta. Can we scroll down a little bit, Jordan? I'm curious to see who else we got as a pitching option. And then we also have As far as questions, Einstein asked thoughts on Hyun-Jin Ryu. Yeah, I'm overweight to the field on Ryu. So I was able to build out some lineups here. I ended up with 13% of Ryu. So I'll be about double the field on him. I think he's a good contrarian pitching option. We had another question from Ant8604, double dollar signs. He wanted to know thoughts on Ryu for FanDuel. Same deal. If you need a cheap pitcher that's going to be contrarian, we know that there's a track record of Ryu being really good. It's just a total unknown, right? I would not play him if he was popular today, but just the fact that nobody's rostering him, it does make him a little bit interesting to me for sure. And then Einsteinium asked about our thoughts on the Cleveland Guardians as a stack. So Guardians going up against Ryu. It's funny. So he asked us what we think about Cleveland, and then also asked us what we think about Hyun-Jin Ryu. I'm more on the Ryu side than I am on Cleveland.
I'm also more on the Ryu side than I'm on Cleveland. I guess I have a 14% Oscar Gonzalez at 2,600 batting cleanup, kind of just like he's cheap enough that he's going to make it in a one-off in some lineups. But in general, yeah, I'm playing more of Ryu. I think I'm actually going to. So actually, my latest crunch, I don't have much Ryu, but I think that you've actually talked me into a little bit more Hyun-Jin Ryu, because I do think like we don't know exactly what to expect from him, but he's already like you would expect him to continue to progress in terms of his pitch count, and it's already like a decent floor there for Hyun-Jin Ryu, and he's cheap enough. And in a fine matchup with Cleveland, like there's a lot to like here, I think, about Ryu. So I think that I am actually going to give him a little projection boost, which I don't usually do in MLB that much.
And our third most roster pitch in the lineup generator is Garrett Cole. He ended up popping up in 17% of lineups, which ironically, the exposure I have to Garrett Cole here, Neil, 16.7%. So very similar to the 150 lineups I'm playing and the 20 lineups built out in the lineup generator here. Super similar exposure, at least on Garrett Cole. So let's go and check out the FanDuel side of things now, Jordan, and see what it is that we are getting over on FanDuel for top projected lineups. Also want to remind you guys that only a couple minutes left here. If you want to take advantage of that free square over at Boom Fantasy, use the promo code Stokastic when you make a deposit under 99.5 strikeouts for Yuri Perez. That is his line today. Pretty favorable looking. So go slam the under on that one. It's a lock. You guys are going to make some money. And then also, if your first entry loses over at Boom Fantasy when you sign up using our promo code, you do get it refunded up to $100. So something else to consider over there. Let's go and look at FanDuel lineups. I'm interested to see what we end up getting more of. Spencer Strider or Freddie Peralta. Before these lineups are done, what's your guess, Neil? Who are you going to get more of? Strider or... All right, quick answer. And you are correct, sir. We have Strider.
I did do my video earlier today on the lineup generator. So, yeah.
Strider in 85% of lineup. So I think it probably stands to reason we have 15% of Freddie Peralta then. If you scroll down, Jordan, let's see if that's the case. Do we have 15%?
10%?
Oh, no, 10% of Sengo. So, okay, we didn't even really get to that much of Freddie Peralta. Yeah, 5%. All right, so at least per our projections here, per our data, maybe even more data points suggested towards between the 1-1 with Strider or Peralta over on FanDuel. What else are you noticing about these lineups, though, other than Strider and like all of them?
I was just too busy noticing Jordan circling your head again. He does it, I think, just when you are like when you're lagging, he starts circling your head. I don't know if he's trying to tell us something, but yes, I think it's interesting that we're getting to 85% Strider. That's more than even I was getting. I was getting to 65%. I also did all lineup type, so I guess I do more of a mix. Tons of Red Sox. Makes sense. The Red Sox look they're fairly inexpensive. Just looking at the top of the board, the Red Sox that we're getting to, they're all very cheap. So it makes sense that we're getting to the Red Sox in a matchup with Cole Reagans in Fenway. I did not notice 100% stacks for Boston. So yes, maybe an understatement to say that we're getting to a lot of Boston. They do look good on FanDuel. I probably wouldn't play 100% Red Sox stacks, even in 20 lineups. I'd like to be more spread out than that. But you know, I've said this before. Every lineup you're getting here is plus EV. It's just a matter of risk tolerance, whether you want to go with these first 20, play all the Boston stacks, or if you want to spread it out. I prefer to spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, and they are the most popular team on the entire slate. We're about to break down all the stacks in whole here. But first, I do want to answer the question we got from Mr. CoolCam97, who had asked us, who is our favorite contrarian bat on FanDuel? So a couple things I think we could do here, Neil. Number one, we could look at some of the lineups we got to in the lineup generator, but also I know you love the top batters tool. Why don't you pull up the top batters tool, and we can use it for multiple things. Say, number one, I have a feeling it might come up when we're doing our home run picks in a little bit. It is something that you reference from time to time. We do that. But I encourage all you guys also, by the way, that when we're doing our home run picks at the end, try to undercut Neil when he goes and looks at the top batter stool. And let's see if we could undermine his strategies here. But also, let's look at the top batter stool for FanDuel and really try to identify what is an individual hitter that we like for cheap. Because don't forget, Mr. Cool Cam wasn't asking us about a stack we like for cheap. He was asking us which contrarian bat we like. So individual contrarian bat.
Okay. All right, let me look. Any particular position or
just any contrarian bat? Any contrarian bat, he says works for him.
All right, let me see.
And I'm gonna look too. And what I
mean, 4% owned Shohei Ohtani is obviously interesting. Looks like in terms of like batters that are showing up near the top in terms of top fantasy score at their position and getting low ownership, makes sense that they're going to be guys that are expensive too. It's Jose Ramirez, Shohei Ohtani, both show up near the top there. Kind of the guys you would expect.
I've got an answer that's going to apply to both FanDuel and DraftKings. Eddie Rosario is, like you mentioned before, he's the cheapest bet on DraftKings in the Braves order. And then also on FanDuel, he's not one of the most expensive hitters on the Braves. But this is a great spot for the Braves. They're also really expensive. And I think one of the most reasonable ways to stack the Braves and be different while saving salary, play Eddie Rosario. He's been much improved this year over last year. He had a big down season a year ago. He's had a bounce back this year. Basically, everybody in the Braves lineup crushes this year over the course of the year. Eddie Rosario, almost no ownership today. I really do like getting to him. He's probably going to get pinch hit for in the later stages of the game, which is a little bit annoying. But if you're just looking for like a one-off contrarian bat, how about Eddie Rosario? He's somebody that I think really makes sense to be overweight too.
Yeah, I like that call. Makes a lot of sense to get to Eddie Rosario if you're, whether you're stacking the Braves or just as a one-off. Yeah, I like that call. He's cheap enough that I think he makes some sense.
All right, let me go into Discord and see if there were any other questions that we had. Just on signing, saying, do you like Cleveland in single entry tonight? Not in single entry. I missed that part where he had asked specifically about single entry. It's a team that I think is a little bit overowned in large field tournaments. Nothing really significant, but in single entry, I love getting to the Braves. I mean, we could transition right into talking about lineups right now, but there's so much ownership going to two spots. The Red Sox are going to be insanely popular in single entry today. When you've got an 8-game slate where one team is 13% owned, I think the majority of the hitters in that Red Sox lineup are going to be like 30-ish% owned in single entry today. The team that really, really is, I'm not going to say totally confusing because they're really cheap. I understand why people would want to get there, but Brian Bayo's been solid this year. You've got 11% ownership going to the Kansas City Royals right now. That is a lot of ownership. I'm well underweight to the Royals today. This is the team that I'm the most underweight to relative to the field. I ended up on, let's see, how many Royals I have. Yeah, I have 4% Royal stacks today, so about a third of what the field has on them. It's a team with stolen base upside, but Brian Bayo's not been bad this year. The Royals offense is terrible. They're really cheap, but this is a pretty easy team to be underweight to the field to. And this is where I think all the ownership is going in single entry. Boston Red Sox, Kansas City Royals. So Einstein, my single entry stack that I'm playing today is the Atlanta Braves. But Neil, when you look at the high end, Boston Red Sox, Kansas City Royals, starting with the Royals, this is also a team you like being underweight to?
So I'm only slightly underweight to the Royals. I think I set my cap at 10%. As you said, they have a little bit of negative leverage looking at their top stack score at 11% ownership, 5% chance of being the top stack overall. They do have a 16% chance of being the top value stack, which makes it hard for me to like fully fade them. They're just cheap enough that I think it makes sense to have them in some spots. But yeah, it does. They do look a little bit overowned because in reality, you're more concerned about just getting the stack that goes off rather than just the value stack. Like top point per dollar stack is less meaningful than the top overall stack in general. You need the points. So yeah, I'm a little bit underweight to the Royals, but honestly not taking a huge stand there. I can see why you would want to, though, in favor of like playing more of the Braves, some of these other stacks that look a little bit better.
Which
so not a huge stack I'm taking.
So this is why the Royals are so popular, because it's a team that easily enables you to play both Freddie Peralta and Spencer Strider in the same lineup.
Yeah.
So the easiest way that you can make your lineups different today, not stacking the Royals and play a pitching combination that isn't Strider and Peralta. Just go if you have a preference, right? I prefer Spencer Strider today. Neil said he prefers Spencer Strider. So you take one of those guys, mix it with just don't stack or the a fairly different looking lineup. The team I have the most exposure to, there's two stacks that I have the most of. It is the Atlanta Braves, who we have at modest ownership. And when you're playing them, like I just mentioned, you're getting on a totally different lineup build than what the rest of the field likes to do. So I like the Braves. It's also the team I'm playing in single entry. Team I like the second most is the Texas Rangers for basically all of the same reasons. Positive matchup going up against Ken Waldichuk. And then you've got this team that's just been a powerhouse on offense this year. They're not projected quite as low owned as the Atlanta Braves, but, comparable. We've got 8.8% ownership here. Last time I updated going on the Rangers. So right around 9% to them, 7% to the Atlanta Braves. And these are the teams we have with the two top stack odds on the entire slate. And people don't want to pay up for them because it limits the ability to pay up for the stud pitchers. So I like getting overweight to the Braves and the Rangers. Those are the two teams I'm most overweight to as far as stacks go. Neil, which stacks are you getting the most exposure to?
Yeah, I'm getting to the most of the Braves by far. Yeah, actually, those are my top two as well. It is Atlanta and Texas, my two highest owned stacks. And I think I'm with you. I think they make a lot of sense just because they are coming in a little bit under owned. And yeah, so Texas, 9% projected ownership, 13% chance to be in the top stack. They only do have a 5% chance to be in the top value stack. So it's you're paying up to get there. But again, the thing we care about the most is the points. Hate that they're in Oakland. That's really the only downside to Texas here. But you just got to go by the numbers. And in the top stack pool, they look like they're coming in low, too low owned. Like you can find some positive leverage on these teams. So I'm with you. Yeah, Atlanta, paying up for Atlanta and Texas makes a lot of sense on this slate when most people are wanting to pay up a pitcher.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing to kind of differentiate a little bit here. And then something else that I think we should talk about is on the low end, if you're looking to save money and you do want to pay up for the two stud pitchers, what offense looks best in that scenario? We know what the field is doing. If he wants to pay up for the stud pitchers, they're generally rostering the Kansas City Royals, who are projected for double-digit ownership. Is there a cheap stack you like getting overweight to the field to that isn't going to put you on the exact same, Royals, Strider, Peralta build as the field? So if you're stacking a cheap offense that is not the Royals, what's your go-to?
Oakland is a little bit interesting. So I mentioned that I do like playing Dane Dunning against Oakland, but I also, in lineups that don't have Dane Dunning, Oakland has a 9% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. I think that they are a lineup that you could consider playing here. Again, they are in Oakland. It's pretty unlikely that I think it's pretty unlikely that they put up like 15 runs. So maybe they're better as like a secondary stack. Like just hope that like 3 Oakland bats actually get there against Dane Dunning. But I think that they're kind of an interesting, pay down option. There's really not that many that stand out. San Francisco looks really good in the top stack tool from a value perspective. I struggle with San Francisco because I'm always so worried about the pinch hit risk, which, even last night we saw, I don't remember who it was, but pretty early we saw one of their, I think Jock Peterson got the hook in like the 6th inning or something like that. So it's a little bit scary for me playing San Francisco. I still think it's probably worth it, like especially in Los Angeles, nice park to hit in. They're coming in at just 4% ownership, 9% chance to be in the top point per dollar stack, and 7% chance to be in the top stack overall. If I didn't have those pinch hit concerns, I would be all in on San Francisco. Even as is, though, I think that they're certainly playable, and I think the ownership kind of reflects that the field is also concerned about the pinch hit risk.
I'm playing them. I'm overweight to them. We have them projected for 4% ownership. I landed on 9% of the Giant stacks here. Like you, I don't feel great about it, but at the same time, too. All right, let's weigh some different risks here. The Giants have pinch hit risk. You know what the Royals have? That they're just a dog shit offense. So it's like, what do I like? What do I want to play the better offense where players might get pinch hit for? Or do I just want to play the worst offense that's projected for a ton of ownership? Like, I think the range of outcomes on these teams is pretty comparable. We have the Royals with a 5.8% chance to be the top stack on the slate. We have the Giants. And by the way, pinch hit risk is all built into our projections as well. We have the Giants with a 6% chance to be a top stack. So we've got the outcome projected really similarly between these two teams. The difference, though, is the Royals 11% owned, the Giants 4% owned. So that's where I end up being overweight to the field on the Giants. Am I going to be incredibly triggered when they have 5 runs in the 4th inning and then all of the right-handed hitters come out of the game? Absolutely. Right. It's going to be a nightmare. And then I'm not going to be able to afford for internet to come back ever again. But at least for the outlook of this particular slate, I don't typically love to stack the Giants. I think given how everything's going, they do make sense. Something else to consider as well. We were talking about ownership before. Who's the most popular value pitcher on the slate, Neil?
The most popular value pitcher on the slate. It's
Patrick Sandoval. So we're getting some leverage there as well.
Good point.
So that's just another angle to consider here when it comes to the San Francisco Giants. Are there any other, by the way, shout out to our Apple friend, Chris Williams, who just gifted out some YouTube subscriptions to people in the YouTube channel. But now also let's go ahead and look at any other stacks on the slate that might stand out to us. Is there anything else you have any kind of strong stance on that's either team are overweight to or underweight to in any kind of significant way before we do some home run picks?
No, I mean, my biggest stand by far is being overweight to Atlanta. I'm well overweight on Atlanta. I'm also overweight on Texas, just not nearly to the same extent. I don't think I'm taking any other huge stands. I know you're well underweight to Kansas City. I'm actually not taking a huge underweight stance on Kansas City. I do think you made a good point about just going to the Giants over them. But yeah, I don't think that I'm taking any other major stands. I have 10% Boston, 8% Toronto. I think Toronto pretty interesting here, but I don't think they're especially contrarian. Let me double check that. Yeah, they're coming in at 9%. So yeah, really, I'm not taking any huge overweight stands. I'm sure there are teams that are getting some ownership that I'm just not playing, but yeah, I'm not really focusing on taking any other huge stands here.
And now let's also do a look over at FanDuel, which has some differences compared to DraftKings. We've got, like, to me, the Boston Red Sox, way too popular, 18% ownership for the Boston Red Sox over on FanDuel. Great team for value purposes. You want to play some of these guys as one-offs. Cash games, you guys are playing cash games on FanDuel. Go ahead and load up on the Red Sox. I think 18% ownership in large field GPP is a little bit too much. And then you've also got teams like the Toronto Blue Jays are 11% owned, going up against Gavin Williams, Peter Lambert. We've got Brewers going against him. They're 12% owned. So really concentrated ownership on FanDuel. So as a result, I like the same teams on FanDuel overall that I like on DraftKings. I like paying up, being a little bit different. And that is going to the Texas Rangers at 9% ownership, and then going to the Atlanta Braves at 7% ownership. Very similar outlook for us on FanDuel as they have on DraftKings. We have the Braves, the overall top stack score on the entire slate with a 14.2% chance to be the top scoring team at 7% ownership. So my favorite stack on FanDuel is the Braves, followed by the Texas Rangers. And then if I'm going to look at a value team, there are some cheap bats at the end of the Rangers lineup. Like, we have them with, what is it, the 5th best odds to be a top value team.
Right.
So on FanDuel, same deal. I like getting to the Braves and I like getting to the Rangers. Are there any cheap teams you see in the top stacks tool that look maybe better on FanDuel than they did on DK?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they're really cheap, but I am noticing that the Angels, I don't think we really talked about on DK. We see a little bit of positive leverage there on FanDuel. San Francisco still looks great as an actual cheap team on FanDuel. But I want to just point out that the Angels coming in on FanDuel at 1.6% ownership, 3.9% chance to be in the top stack, 2.4% chance to be in the top value stack. So they look pretty good as well from just like a general looking good perspective, not necessarily a value perspective. Other value teams, I mean, Milwaukee looks like a good value team, but they're getting ownership on FanDuel. The Cubs are sort of interesting. Again, not really value, but coming in at 3% ownership, 3% chance to be in the top value stack, and 7% chance to be in the top stack overall. So I do have some interest in going back to the Cubs after they crushed all week last week. Yeah, I'm not really seeing any other, like, I guess Cleveland actually looks pretty good as a value stack against Ryu. 3% ownership, 6% chance to be in the top point per dollar stack. So you could go there. I don't know that I really want to go to Colorado, but there's a case to be made, I guess, for Colorado on FanDuel in that Freddie Peralta is getting 25% ownership. Colorado's coming in at 1% ownership with a 4% chance to be in the top point per dollar stack and a 2% chance to be in the top stack. So the numbers would support going to Colorado against Freddie Peralta too.
All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up the show, Neil, with dong picks. So if anybody in YouTube chat wants to give out their home run pick and maybe undercut Neil, now is the time to do it. So let's ask everybody in the YouTube chat what their home run pick of the day is. And then also really quick, we have a question in Discord for mine signing. So if you guys, by the way, if you want access to our Discord channel, sign up for a Stokastic package. We got a link below. You get 50% off any pack you sign up for. So if you want the lineup generator, you get 50% off that, get access to it for less than $5. But also if you want the Stokastic Plus Platinum package, it's going to get you projections, ownership projections for every single DFS sport out there. That's going to be covered, and also gets you access to our Discord channel. You mentioned Cole Ragans. No, because he's not somebody that I'm playing. I did bet him for under 4.5 strikeouts tonight. So that's something that I did with Cole Ragans. But no, I'm not rostering him. Did you play him at all? I know the Red Sox are very popular.
I think I played a little bit of, let me see if I actually ended up in some of my crunches I was getting to a little bit. Yeah, I got to one lineup in 44 of Cole Ragans.
Yeah. Out of 150, I have 0 with Ragans in them.
Yeah, that seems fine either way.
All right. Some of the answers from the YouTube chat, where we've got Brandon Belt. That is the pick from John C. 2000. We've got Sportswith saying Corey Seager, Anthony Childs, Bobby Witt Jr., Sotex, Adolis Garcia, Chris Williams, also Adolis Garcia, Malakar going with Pete Alonso and George Springer, Nicholas Robertson. He wants Corey Seager to dong today. Emac, our old friend Emac, who's going to be president in 2024. Francisco Alvarez is his pick, closing in on Emac becoming president. Time goes fast.
Really does.
Adolis Garcia from Chris Williams, Nicholas Robertson saying Springer again. Then we've got CJ. He's saying Aliko Williams. We've got lots of answers in here. But Neil, who are we going with as a home run? He better not be Kyle. By the way, also throwing Matt Olson. We had from who said Matt Olson?
Will Cream. Which I was wondering, is that one of those one of those names that he's trying to get you to say it, or is it like his actual name? I don't know. Yeah, I was about to confidently say Matt Olson, thinking that nobody had said it, and I felt really good about that. And then I finally came across, he just said Olson. Maybe he might have been talking about some other Olson. Who knows? He didn't give the first name, so he might have been talking about. I guess so. If he took Matt Olson, who was I wasn't reading the rest of these names because I was just going to go there. Let's see. Did anybody say?
Oh boy, we've really fucked up Neil now. What is he going to do?
You really did. I was just.
He's in knots. He's in knots.
Did anybody take Aaron Judge? I think somebody did take Judge.
Yeah, Matt Malukar called him for 2 homers, though.
Oh, 2 homers. I think he's only going to hit 1. So can I take him?
Okay.
For just 1 home run for Aaron Judge?
Yeah. You can copy off Malukar's homework.
Yeah, I'm going
Let's see. What am I going to go with here? All right. So Neil has gone with the contrarian pick of Aaron Judge for his home run option.
Yeah.
What am I going to go with?
Only 1 home run, though, to be clear.
Only 1. Exactly 1. So if he hits 2 today, you fail?
Yeah, it doesn't count then.
Okay. All right. What am I going to go with then? You know what? I called him out as a contrarian play before. I have 12% of Eddie Rosario projected for 2% ownership. Give me Eddie Rosario to homer a little bit. How about that? Just a little bit of a homer, like one that squeaks over the wall.
We have him with a 16% chance of hitting a homer, by the way. That's not bad. Not nothing.
All right. And what's Judge? Your pick on
my home
Judge?
Run pick of Aaron Judge has a 29% chance of hitting a home run. Matt Olson leads all batters at 32%. All
right. Well, there we go. Neil has settled on Aaron Judge did 1 homer today. I went with Eddie Rosario as my dong pick. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Made it through the show. I think we kind of improved our buffering as we went. So thank you guys very much for watching. I tell because there was less lag when I talked to you when you responded. Everybody, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Remember, we always have our podcast channel as well. Stokastic Daily Fantasy on the podcast. Wherever you listen to them, Apple, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever it is you listen to our podcast, go find Stokastic Daily Fantasy. Download it. You could also be so kind while you're there. You leave us a 5-star review because it does help us out a whole bunch. So, guys, good luck with all your lineups today. We'll be back here tomorrow for Live Before Lock. See you then. Good night.